Alright, here we go. Super brief introduction. This is Soulcalibur III Chronicles of the Sword, any percent UWC. And I'll get into explaining that in a minute, but we're going to go ahead and get started right now. Okay, so Soulcalibur III is the fourth game in the Soul series, makes sense in context. The first game was called Soul Edge, and all the following games were named Soulcalibur and then numbered after it. We're up to Soulcalibur 6 now. Soulcalibur 3 was PS2 exclusive and the first game in the series to introduce the Create a Soul function, which is basically a custom character function. And that has remained in every Soulcalibur since. But since they launched it with this title, they went all out on doing things for your custom characters to do, including this game mode, which is designed entirely around custom characters, called Chronicles of the Sword. Well, pretty much all of Soulcalibur takes place in a historical fantasy fiction version of Earth at the late 16th century. More or less regular Earth, but the biggest thing is that there are two magic swords, Soulcalibur and Soul Edge, that have existed for millennia, are in a constant war of trying to destroy each other. Kind of a good versus evil thing, but they're really more, especially in later versions of the game, Defense of the Ancient style. They just want to wipe each other out, and good and evil gets really obscured. Still got to fix up some things for my wonderful tracker, but that's okay. But Chronicles of the Sword takes place in a unique world that they created just for it, an RPG-style world. It's RPG themed, not really an RPG as much as I try to push for it to be, but it does have a lot of RPG elements. In that our characters have classes and stats, and we level up in this game mode, which, you know, normally your stats are set in most game modes in most other fighting games in general, and Soulcalibur, you know, being one of those.
Haven't you had enough? It was a good match.
But so with this unique setting, we have three separate countries that are part of this continent: the Grandal Empire, the Kingdom of Dalkia, and the Haltese Republic. We are a cadet in the army of the Grandal Empire, and this first tutorial is we are in training in the military academy of Perugia in Grandal, and we are literally just learning the ropes of how to be a commander. And so all throughout this are your justified tutorial of Gerardo, the general of the entire army as far as we know, as well as the leader of the academy, teaching us the ropes of how to operate in this game mode, while at the same time teaching our character how to be a battlefield commander. Although we command an army, we only get 3 units in parts of the game, up to 4 and 5 eventually in some chronicles. Each chronicle varies on what it gives. This is the first and only one that will give us only 2 characters.
Decisive battle.
And the objective of most of these chronicles is to take the main stronghold. That will change sometimes in some chronicles, but for the most part, because this is a speedrun, I am going to be burning my way towards the main stronghold as fast as possible to wipe it out, unless I have to fulfill some other objective, which is usually defeat all enemies. Not only is it RPG-esque, it's actually somewhat modeled after strategy RPGs like Fire Emblem. Even though it's real-time and not turn-based, it has some of the same kinds of concepts in it, and taking strong points and having groups of armies moving against each other, and the general objective being varying between assassination battles, which in this case are taking the main stronghold. For the most part, they fulfill the assassination protocol, because there is almost always a final boss at the end of the stronghold, and we have to defeat them as well as take it. But there is one mission where it's only take the stronghold and the boss doesn't remain in there for some reason, but just one. And then there are some where you have to do what they call route missions and defeat every single enemy available. Every single enemy on the map. And so I have to swap up my strategy for those particular versions of those particular missions that we get to them. Now, you do have a number of units that you recruit. However, it is much easier and generally more fun to play with all customized characters. Now, in a normal speed run, I have a dancer whose absolute power and ability you are witnessing firsthand with the incredible spin to win of Soul of Xianghua. However, as I say, they went all out for the Create a Soul in Soulcalibur 3, even more than they did so in the later games. Even though the Create a Soul function is better, the things attached to it are not quite as good. And in most particular, they created 17 special styles, which are definitely cheaper versions of regular things, you know, just like budget rather than cheap, I should say. Budget versions of some of the styles. Some of them are slightly unique, like the lance that you'll see, or these greave edges, which are really cool that Notice here uses. But many of them are just, you know, your budget knockoffs of the regular styles. But even so, it adds a lot of variety to the game. And the classes that you choose to make your characters in actually determines what weapons they are able to use. So my primary character is a dancer, because dancer is the only class that has access to the Soul of Xianghua. Because the 23 base regular, you know, non-secret character or boss Soul Calibur characters can be have their styles given to the custom characters you make. From 4 onward, you pretty much always base your custom characters on the normal Soul Calibur characters. But for this one, we actually most of the time you'll be playing through the game, and throughout this, with only a few exceptions, which I'll get to, you're fighting only characters with the 17 custom styles that were made for your custom characters. And all of your companions you recruit have those, but the characters you create, each class, except for the Swordmaster, has up to 5 weapon styles that they can use, 3 basic ones, and then once you've leveled up a character to level 30, it unlocks for all the rest of on your game file, for all your further playthroughs, you can use the 2 Soul Calibur things assigned to your class. Because there are 12 base classes, 23 characters, so each one gets 2. That would leave 24 if you are doing the math. So one character, Tira, has her style available to both Thief and Assassin. Now, the Soul of Xianghua, as you've witnessed, is absolutely absurdly overpowered for this game. Now, we're going to be fighting against Ellua here. She is the sharpest woman at the Academy, our friend and rival that we have to deal with. She is both a friend and a foe over the course of this game. This is our first battle with her, of course. Later, she'll join our party at various stages of the game. And you see the spin to win move of the Soul of Xianghua is just melting people. So it is so dominant, you might think that I just should use only it the entire time. But as it turns out, in normal gameplay, there would be nothing better than this. I was able to do one of the hardest things ever with Soul of Xianghua, mostly spinning to winning, clearing 12 tournaments in a row using the tournament function available on this. It's that absurdly powerful and broken. However, when you're talking about levels and going up, the AI has... Later on, the problem with the dancer, who is the only one who can use Soul of Xianghua, is that their stats are generally lower than most of the other classes. Their starting stats are technically not the lowest, but they do have very low growth, and most of their primary best stat is in agility, which is the least important stat. Their attack is okay, but their hit points and their defense are both really, really low. So they are extreme glass cannons. Even though I can do decent damage, I take 1 or 2 hits and I'm done. And the spin to win, as I call this absurd moveset, kind of, it takes a little bit of setup, so it's very easy to defeat me. So in a normal playthrough, I would stack the rest of my 4 characters as Swordmasters. Swordmasters are the ultimate class. They have the very best stats in the game, just really absurdly high. Samurai have better strength growth up until level 99, but everything else, the Swordmaster is just pretty much better. And I think Assassin has slightly better agility throughout the game, but they don't have anything comparison in the other stats. They are absurdly strong. They don't have access to any of the Soul Calibur move styles, and instead have access to the 17. You can choose any of the 17 base Create a Soul weapons for them. So as you can see there, if he decides to attack me first and uses a move that will hit me, it'll get me before I get started. And so right now it wasn't too big a problem, just an annoyance. But I have to be very careful in later sessions. So just relying only on dancers with spin to win would be difficult, and there's some battles where it just wouldn't work because of missions, which I'll get to later as well. However, this is UWC, and I'll finally get around to explaining that. In UWC, Swordmasters are absurdly strong. I always give them the katana style, which you'll finally see in action next time from one of my characters, because it is the next best thing for overall just dominating the enemy easily, doing a lot of damage fast, and being absolutely safe and reliable. Of course, the problem is that then you only see 2 movesets the entire game. It's always spin to win or shoulder charge, and that is it. So I played around with a couple of challenge modes that require me to broaden my horizon, and the first one I really tried was MCO, which stands for main character only, where the only custom character I make is your main character, because you have to customize them. And I go ahead and make them a dancer, and then I fill out the rest of my units with the guys who are given to me. Which is okay, but a lot of the fun of playing this for me is creating my own custom characters. And when you only get to make one, it's a lot less fun. And also, the characters that they give you at certain points of the game, especially Chronicles 13 through 17, are incredibly weak and hard to use. So storyline-wise, here's General Gerardo. This is our graduation test. We have to beat him to graduate from the academy as a commander. Otherwise, we might as well be dead, our character thinks. So I finally developed this category of UWC, which serves as a bit of a compromise. It's just a bunch of self-imposed restrictions. I cannot use Swordmasters, and I'm limited to a single one of each class and a single one of each weapon style. Meaning that I can't use the same weapon style in more than one character, and I can't make more than one of the same class. So the 5 classes I've created are Dancer, Samurai, Barbarian, Knight, and Assassin. A rather eclectic mix, but they have access to weapons that are overall reliable and strong, because while the game... this game is actually relatively difficult. The AI is incredibly good at the absurd kinds of things that AI can do, such as frame-perfect guard impacting and hitting you before you can hit the enemy at certain times. And so in order to get through the game speedily, I pretty much rely always on some form of abusable move like this. But with these, I have 5 different move sets I have to rely on instead of just one. And so it makes it a little bit more interesting. Plus, I can get a bit more fun with the character creation because I can make them themed. A little bit better. Like the very first run of this I did based on Final Fantasy V and actually designed the costumes after the character's nearest equivalent class in Final Fantasy V to the one they had. So Bart's the dancer was wearing his dancer outfit that he has in the game, which they even have a model for of in Dissidia that you can equip. You know, and did all the rest. So I've got a sword dancer looking person from China here for my main character of Kane, and then I have a samurai, a knight, apologies ahead of time, scantily clad barbarian maiden warrior, and a ninja assassin type for my final one. I would play around with similar things when I did all Swordmasters too, but it didn't quite always fit as much, especially when I gave them all katanas. But this feels just a little bit more role-playing themed in such ways. Now, besides your characters having classes and different weapons, once you make a character into a class, they are set on that for the entirety of the game. You can delete the character and make a new one, but they lose all their experience. Once you've set a class, you can't change a class. You can change their weapon out pretty much any time to a different style or a different individual weapon among them, which have different properties that affect battles. in various ways. Or you can... but at the start of each battle, you also have a unit type. And so you can see here, these guys are bandits, while my leader now is an infantry. And there are 4 unit types: infantry, cavalry, knight, and bandit. And they each have different, their unit type affects their stats mostly on the field and also a little bit in battle. Bandits are not quite as strong in battle. Their stats are a little bit lower, but they are the best overall for beating the game quickly because they have the second best movement speed and the best damage. And while cavalry are fastest, why don't you use cavalry? Well, because they take forever to take down buildings. They do only 3 points of damage a hit to buildings, while bandits do 5. So it's almost twice as much. So the little bit of speed that cavalry get is more than lost in the amount of time it takes them to get through buildings, because we have to get lots of buildings taken out over the course of the game. The one disadvantage to bandits is that they are paper-thin fragile. You can let your units just battle out on the battlefield here if they aren't in a fortress, but if they encounter in the middle of the field, most of the time, except for a few special boss AI, they will allow you to just let them duke it out on the field. But if I did that, my bandits would be destroyed. However, even with the load times here, it's usually faster to defeat them in Soulcalibur combat anyway. But I switched my main character to an infantry, which are the best overall stats on the battlefield and gives you decent stats in battle as well. However, they are the second slowest and the second worst at taking down buildings. So it may seem counterintuitive that I'm going slower here deliberately. However, as it turns out, because of the loading time for fighting enemies, I want to reduce the loading time as much as possible. And so because of these enemies coming up are knights, who are actually the best at taking down strongholds. They do 6 points of damage per swing, twice as much as cavalry, but they're about half the speed of cavalry, maybe even less, so they are really terrible to use. But so I never use them, but the AI uses lots of knights. The AI never uses bandits, by the way, because it makes enemies weaker. They're designed strictly as a player-only unit for strategic purposes. But because these knights are so slow, it takes them forever to reach this stronghold. So I need a way to delay taking the stronghold until they both reach. And as it turns out, positioning my main character at 1 and making them infantry, they take the stronghold, as you saw, right after the third character enters. So I get to fight all 3 at once. And I need to do this because this is the first map with the route condition. I have to defeat all enemies. So normally I'd just pick like the southern path because it's the quickest, blow through 2 buildings, attack here, defeat the main boss. But since I do have to beat all enemies, I have to spread out a little bit or they will get in my way and it's very annoying. So this guy, you may notice, is here, but don't worry. Most enemies, if they don't have a charge forward script on their AI, they have a rush back to defend the main stronghold script. So he does that here. Now, in the main stronghold, infantry do the same damage bandits do. Bandits only do 4 instead of 5. So the infantry does the same amount of damage at 4 per hit. So after, it's a little bit slower going from the main building to here, but it ends up saving time overall. It's one of the little small things that happen in the speedrun under the hood that is underappreciated unless I really talk about it. It's almost something you wouldn't be able to notice. So now we have, storyline-wise, we've graduated from the academy. We've been given a post on the border, an insignificant place, but we're suddenly attacked by bandits in the middle of the night. And you may notice that this bandit looks like a generic Grandal soldier, just like the ones we've been fighting in the, training missions the last couple of Chronicles. There is a purpose behind that, as we'll see at the start of the next Chronicle. The AI is incredibly random. What they choose to do in battle is not very much dictated by what I do. Sometimes certain AI, even the most generic nobodies, will suddenly decide to be the hero and just start trying to beat the crap out of me, which is kind of bad, because usually I can dominate them, but once again, especially with the spin to win, because of the startup time, if they are properly aggressive, they can beat me down quickly. So this bandit leader gives us some parting words before rushing off. And one of the neat things about the game is the little bit of detail in the sides and stuff. Different sides have different banners and colors associated with them. Grandal is both blue and red. They get 2 of the main colors all to themselves because of how many times we fight Grandal versus Grandal, such as we did in the training missions and things. Although red is its primary color, so we'll spend most of the game as red. These bandits are orange with a very simple banner, but as we fight the other nations, they have different symbols on their banners and different colors associated with them. So shortly after this, the enemy kingdom of Dalkia has declared war on us, and they are claiming that this is justified because we attacked them with a sneak attack in the middle of the night right by their border here where we were located. And we realized, oh, those bandits that were dressed as Grandal soldiers, this was all a setup. They're trying to start a war here. What's the meaning of this? And so if this were a regular RPG, we would probably be sent out on a special secret mission to try and track down the leader of these bandits and figure out what this conspiracy was about and try and end the war. But since this is a very simple story strategy RPG style game, we instead have to we just follow our orders and go off to repel the Dalkian invaders, even though it isn't technically their fault that we're at war. They're an enemy nation. They're all enemies, so it doesn't matter. We're about to encounter our primary rival among Dalkia, the character we fight more than any other character in the game. We have to fight Luna 4 times, so we're going to meet her in a minute here. So this is the first map with a Soulcalibur character in it. And so as I mentioned, all the characters that you face all use the regular 17 design styles. And in fact, all of them are... as I say, this was all done to largely show off how good the custom creation was, you know, as a new feature and the kinds of things you can do. And so every enemy in the game, with a couple of semi-weird sort of exceptions, and the Soulcalibur characters you can recreate. And so in the case of the Soulcalibur characters, those 23 Soulcalibur characters are available as optional super bosses that you can fight. They're all level 60. So we're running around here level 8, level 7, level 4. But over here in this, I can't really point to it, but it is I actually can show it off while after this battle while we're taking out this other stronghold. So here's Luna. You fight her 4 times and get cutscenes in 3 of them.
I shall remember your name, as you are the only one who has provided a worthy challenge.
So I'm the only worthy one. But she falls just as quickly to that. So my character has done almost all the fighting, is up to level 7. But there's a level 60 character here that we could fight. Asteroth. So they happen to be... Now, character stats in the game, especially for particular bosses, are not even. There's no randomness in leveling up for your characters. Any character of any specific class will have the exact same stats. But certain AI bosses will have much stronger stats. You can tell if you look at them at their hit points, and you just get a feel for them having greater attack or defense because you're doing less damage or more damage than you have done to similarly leveled enemies of the same class. It feels pretty significant. So over there in that little place, tucked away in the corner, is Asteroth, the first Soulcalibur character we get to fight in the Chronicles of the Sword. And so they're all spread out. Starting here, there's usually 1 per level, sometimes 2. There are a few levels that don't have them. The ones specifically that you have to defeat all enemies because they don't want to force you to defeat a level 60. That would be too rough. And so I do have another category that I like to run, which I think I'm going to expand on this one for as well, which I call SC% for Soulcalibur%. And it's a special challenge mode where that's just a little bit more interesting, where I have to beat all 23 of the level 60 Soulcalibur characters over the course of the run. Adds roughly 40-ish minutes to the run because they're not only do I have to beat them, but I can't use as many any percent strats to skip as many battles because I have to divide my forces out in order to fight those guys. So what I just did there was a little plug. The AI, if I'm defending, as you may have noticed me doing before, I can choose to start a battle at any time, but the AI won't. And Arion here is one of the weird exceptions. He is a character you can customize, make yourself easily, except that for some reason he is unusually tall. There are two unusually tall bosses who for some reason just are a little bit taller than normal. Their sprites are a little bit bigger. And I don't see, I've not seen that has any real gameplay effect, like for reach or anything, but it's just a weird little quirk. I don't know why they did it, but it's interesting. Later on, of course, in other Soulcalibur games later, you can set the height of your characters yourself. But in this game, everybody has a very set height. So now we're advancing on Dalkia. Ellua has joined us. Along with another new character. You slowly get one or two characters, everything. And there's some characters who are optional. They'll potentially join. Like back during the Gerardo Chronicle and Chronicle 2, there were two characters who were on offensive scripts who just charged forward, and I went down the middle and ignored them. But Qingkai and Xiaoxin will join your party later on, about Chronicle 8, I believe. If you have chosen, if you defeat either one of them or both of them, whichever one you defeat first is the one who joins your party. But if you don't defeat either of them, they don't join, they don't get dialogue, so it actually saves a little time. And they're not particularly grand.
But who knows what'll happen next time?
But now we finally get 4 characters. Now, while we always have a large number of... And I really shouldn't have fought that battle, but that's okay. Let's fight these two together. Wastes a small amount of time when I don't wait for all 3, but it's slightly safer because, again, since I'm a bandit, I'm taking large amounts of damage. It might actually be worth it to go ahead and make her infantry here, come to think of it. Because similar to how I used an infantry in Chronicle 3, here I don't really want to take this other stronghold. But I need it as a distraction to try and prevent at least one character from not fighting me later on. Besides the 2 Soulcalibur characters, Ivy and Cervantes are both here. They're level 60 pirates and very tough. Cervantes is in a stronghold, and Ivy is actually just the one standing off to the side, all on her lonesome. But if you approach her, you can't feed her in combat in map combat. She will actually start combat with you all by herself if you try. But we're ignoring both of them because this is SC% and there's no reason to waste time fighting extra battles. Though one of the nice things of SC% is all the extra experience you get. It makes the end game a little bit safer and more consistent. But even though there's only ever one victory condition on a map, but there are numerous loss conditions. And there are always 2 loss conditions, except for Chronicle 20, because there are no strongholds in Chronicle 20. If your main stronghold is ever taken, you lose. Period. Doesn't matter. While there are certain maps where taking the, where you have to defeat all enemies, where taking the enemy stronghold doesn't save you. Also, if all your characters are defeated at once, you lose. If your characters are defeated, they will actually regenerate in a short amount of time, and this is super unusual. Rowan is not running around, he's staying inside the stronghold. I've never had that happen before. How interesting. I wonder what I did. Sometimes the scripts that are on some of these characters are incredibly bizarre. And it's very hard, and just the subtlest little things I do, including the order I choose to send my characters out, and the time I take to do it, can cause them to make slight adjustments in their thing. So I actually, even though I've been playing this for 4 or 5 years, I still get weird little quirks happen that have never happened before, where they decide to do some very strange action. And that's the case here, because we're about to fight Rowan, who normally strands himself off to the side, and so we never actually see him in combat in this first map. He is actually the boss of this battle as well, but he does not stay inside his stronghold, so if you're playing casually and you, if you, like me, you know, want to kill all enemies, so you spread out and take all the other fortresses first, you'll take this stronghold last, and there will actually be nobody in it. And it's the only time in the entire game that will happen since Rowan decides to run out on the field himself. And as I say, usually he rides his horse up and down to the left there, and you can see Ivy standing to the left here as we load. That's Ivy there. And so after we run past, he decides he's going to try and defend the main stronghold, or sometimes he rushes forward to try and take mine, but he'll never take any because he's a cavalry and they just are so bad at taking strongholds, even level 1. So let's go ahead and have Sharon get some XP there because we can. So it's just very weird that this happened. It's nice to get the extra experience, but generally I just try and reduce as many battles as I can, so it's kind of bad. I might lose a bit of time on this Chronicle because of that. Not that it's a big deal. It's like, especially since it was part of the same group of enemies, it's only going to be like 15-20 seconds. But just an unusual thing here. But anyway, your units will regenerate after being defeated, unlike the enemies, which is kind of to balance out the fact that you only get 3, 4, or 5, while the enemy has, you know, 15 to 20 sometimes. They will regenerate at the nearest level 3 or stronger stronghold, level 3 or higher. So if you don't have any level 3s out there, they'll regenerate at the main stronghold, because that's always 4 or 5. However, on this map, if you do let all of them be defeated at once, you will lose the Chronicle. In this map, there's an additional loss condition where if we allow the enemy to take both of these strongholds, we lose the game, which is the main reason why I have this guy over here, was just to prevent the enemies charging up from taking the stronghold. And then I went and attacked, so that guy would rush back to defend, so he is not going to make it here in time to defend this stronghold. Unfortunately, the other 4 will, but fighting 4 is still better than fighting 5, and it would take him too long to reach the main stronghold to help out. So we'll have to defeat these 4, and then this Chronicle will be complete. So
Decisive battle.
And as I was mentioning briefly before, the enemy will never start a battle with you if they're defending. You do have the option, and I have already used that during the speedrun. They will wait until you take the main stronghold, and they cannot enter a square, you know, or, you know, space. Wow, high damage assassin. That's how fragile dancers are. Even a generic nobody assassin is able to do that much damage to me with one of the lesser damaging weapons in the game. They are all heroes today. So I sometimes take advantage of that, as I did back in Chronicle 4, by forcing the enemy to bottleneck up and not be able to reach me by forming a plug. I let them take a stronghold, and then I start attacking it with a single person, and that person won't be able to finish off the stronghold before, you know, my objective is complete, and they won't be able to reach me to stop my conquest. It's very important to do this as well because, good, I'm going to survive after all. I was a bit worried for a second. just another small time loss if I die.
It was a good match.
Not a very big deal. It actually means more experience because you earn a tiny amount of experience for leveling, and then you still get full experience for losing. You still earn a fraction of the experience, and you still get full experience when you finally win. So it would spread the experience out a little more. But that plug function is something that I'll use. The plug maneuver I'll be using a couple more times during the run. And there was Rowan saying darn retreat. So yeah, this went relatively well, despite having the extra battle against Rowan. So here's our second battle against Luna, and the first appearance of her Klesser-Pemdo. You can see the word there. It's very strange name. I don't know why they're called that, but she has 4 female lieutenants who serve her. They're an Amazon brigade, and they're called in... her 4 minions are called in total the Klesser-Pemdo. And this objective, I have to defeat them in addition. Luckily, I can manipulate their AI, so I don't have to waste time charging through all the enemies. There are 4 total, including Lizard Man, who's standing in the middle there, that I won't have to fight. This is the overall shortest route and the easiest. So you may have noticed when I've been highlighting strongholds before that there's an option, there's a statistic of the stronghold called mission, or a value, or whatever you want to call it. So strongholds have missions, or at least some of them do. Some of them have no mission, and it says so. Mission none. Missions is a weird Soulcalibur term that's been around since the beginning of the series, just about. There was a mission mode in Soulcalibur 1, for instance, where you have to fight a series of battles with special parameters. Sometimes especially fast enemies, or stronger than usual enemies, or the terrain is different somehow, like it's super slippery, like ice. And that's what missions are throughout Soulcalibur, and so that's what they are in Chronicles of the Sword. Strongholds have missions that apply these parameters to the stronghold, and we've had a few so far that I've kind of ignored because they're insignificant, but this is the start of where they're interesting. And there are a couple of particularly annoying ones we want to avoid. Ice and Quake over here. We don't want to fight those. All guard break is not as bad. It means the enemy's weapon is wreathed in lightning, and every one of their attacks is a guard break attack, which is basic in Soulcalibur. It means that you can block it, but it puts you in a guard break stun afterwards, and if the enemy has a quick enough follow-up attack, you won't be able to defend against it. Plus, your attacks are at a disadvantage, as they say in Soulcalibur parlance. It's not really very bad because I'm usually hyper-aggressive and wipe them out anyway. But each of the Klesser-Pemdo also have an elemental theme. 10 points if you can guess that Loopy's elemental theme is fire. And so the element of the weapon is similarly set that way. And she is being super nasty, aggressive, mean today. Wow, she did a lot of damage to me. She usually does not do that much damage. She usually doesn't do any at all, but she decided she was going to be a hero today. It's very unfortunate when she does, because with the guard break, she is able to do a lot of punishing hits. Because the Lance is surprisingly good at multi-hit attacks, which is why a guard break is good for it. Lightning is not really fire. Of course, there aren't really elements in this game. It's not a real RPG. But they simulate that with some of the effects and such that are available. So for air, Ellua is air, so she gets whirlwind. Aeg is earth, so she gets quake. And Hildo is water, so she gets ice. And ice makes the floor super slippery, so it's as annoying as you might expect. If you played any video game with an ice world with ice physics in it, and you have that slipperiness of your character making you lose control, you know it's bad. And so we avoid ice as much as we possibly can. There are a few times we can't, but this time is not one of them. We get to avoid it. The whirlwind can also be bad. As you can see, I'm actually being moved backwards. It actually moves you in a circle. But so it pushes you slightly behind and over to the side. But this whirlwind is not particularly strong. However, on other maps where it is a stronger whirlwind effect, it will actually push me away so I can't do my full combo, which is very annoying. Unless the AI chooses to get up towards me and move themselves closer as they stand, then they will put themselves in range to be hit stun locked by my combo. My never-ending cheese strategy. Spin to win! So not being killed by Ellua was good. So even if I die to Luna or one of the others, I'll only lose, 15 to 20 seconds. It's not a big deal. So because these two have basic defensive scripts, they will retreat out of their specific places to here. So even though I have to defeat all three of them, I don't actually have to take all their strongholds, which is convenient. Because then I'd have to go through Lizard Man to do so, or spread my characters out to multiple sides, which would also waste time. And, it would just take more time to take more places and such.
Decisive battle.
So we prefer that. Quake shakes the ground every 3 seconds. You can tell why it's Earth. Whirlwind is good for air, of course. You can tell that. And they will have upgraded... We'll fight them one more time later with upgraded strongholds, and I'll get into those. They're very special, unique, dual properties.
So we meet again. Now, it's time to collect on your debt.
She went from sounding super casual to sounding super threatening. Luckily, my Soulcalibur restores my health relatively quickly. Not a huge thing, but... You can also see that even though I've been doing a lot of damage to a lot of characters, very strong defensive high-level characters like Luna take small amounts of damage. Aeg also, as a pirate, has very high vitality. And of course, is level 22, so...
Haven't you had enough?
Now, this one is a cure effect, which is only mildly annoying. As you can see, it's slowly restoring their health as well, but that's okay. Now, another thing about missions is that the intensity... I talked about stronger whirlwinds, for instance. The strength... The level of the stronghold affects the hit points the stronghold has, whether your units regenerate at it, of course, as I mentioned. It also affects who it affects. So at level 1, most stronghold effects will actually affect both characters, the attacker and defender. But as you level up the stronghold, it will restrict it to only affecting one or the other, depending on if it's detrimental, which most are, or beneficial, which a few are, like Cure. So if this were a level 1 stronghold, the Cure would actually affect both of us instead of just them. But since it's level 4, it's very strong and it affects them. So it's not only the level that determines just how strong the effect is, though. At later levels, it might even be more determined by hit points rather than the actual stronghold's level. Just being higher level means it has more hit points, kind of thing, obviously. So now we're no longer fighting yellow Dalkia, we're fighting blue Haltese, light blue. So the Haltese Republic, all of us have been in much of a Cold War. We don't have much allies, we're only enemies with each other. We always have hated each other. And so Dalkia didn't, need a very big excuse to decide to declare war on us. And now that we've been fighting each other for probably a month or two, however long has passed in-game, it doesn't give those details, just says time jumps a couple of times. They've decided, Grandal's probably weakened from fighting Dalkia. All their forces are far from the front, invading another country. Let's declare war on them and, take some stuff for ourselves. So they declare war. And rather than using fresh troops near the site or whatever, the Emperor ordered our unit to leave Ellua in charge of some of them, and then march ourselves... let's use Irelia. Get her some experience. Decide to leave some of our troops with Ellua, and she's in charge of mopping up Dalkia, because we just had 2 successful campaigns in their territory, and we're advancing on their capital. So she gets all the glory for conquering Dalkia, while we have to rush our tired main troopers here to Haltese to defend against to the Haltese border, to defend against the second invasion. And so our units are not very pleased with this. But suddenly General Gerardo shows up out of nowhere and says, yeah, sounds like you guys are in trouble. I'll help out. So even though he's the supreme commander of all of the Grandal forces, or at least we assume so, because no other general is really mentioned by name anywhere in the storyline or backstory or anything, he's put himself under our command as our lieutenant/adjutant, whatever. What you'd call your main first officer. And so he joins your party now as a level 15 knight, which is quite strong, very useful, especially when you're playing this game for the first time. Not that we're super concerned about that right now ourselves. Since we don't use any of the characters here, ours are just as strong or stronger. But it is pretty neat casually, but let's see. Our Soulcalibur character here is Rock. As I mentioned, last time was Lizard Man. He was an assassin, sitting there in between the two middle fortresses. Rock is just north of our current position, the guy just standing there. He's a level 60 gladiator. I don't really agree with that. I think he should have been a barbarian as well. But finally get to give Sierra some experience. Oops. Soul Edge is a very powerful weapon when it's the... this is pretty much identical to the Soul of Nightmare Soul Edge, so it has very, very powerful properties. It slowly drains your health, which is negative. Also, Calibur weapons do, but it's also vampiric, so it restores that health when you do damage. And it gives a good increase in attack power. Very, very high increase in attack power, so... I always enjoy this Chronicle a little bit on any percent, or on either percent, because the enemies tend to try and converge towards your main forces, so they charge towards the middle, while I'm just punching through the middle. And then they just keep, most of them come chasing after us as we go. Irelia didn't go all the way for some reason. Not a huge deal. So this is going to be our first encounter with ice, and something interesting happens here because the leader of these forces, who has spoken to us in the dialogue that we skipped through quickly, Halfus, is actually inside of this stronghold. And he's going to give us more important dialogue, brief but important dialogue, after he after we defeat him. Hopefully easily. Now, the good news, one of the other nice things about Spin to Win in particular, is that it is less affected by ice because it tracks very well. As you can see. So it's still slightly risky, more risky than a normal floor, but for the most part, I usually do okay with it. Most of the other movesets that I use involve moving around a lot and have your characters slide past if they sidestep, so they're very dangerous to use. And that went perfectly. I've gotten a little bit better at not panicking and doing silly things, but just sticking to the Spin to Win since it works. But previously, I used to think that this was, the time where I wasn't super unhappy if my first death happened here. So far I haven't had any deaths, which is a good start. It's going to be later on that we really need to be worried about those deaths, though. Some of them don't know what to do. He's like started coming and like, I'll never catch up. I'm going to give up. As I say, the scripts are sometimes strange, especially when they're assigned to some sort of aggressive mode. If they're defensive, it's pretty simple. They remain in their stronghold. If the main stronghold comes under attack, they retreat towards it. But most enemies have some sort of a slightly aggressive mode, which actually usually means seeking out your characters. And I didn't realize this for the longest time because of how I spread my characters out, but that's important in the next battle. And so Halfus just, the text that I just skipped through suggested that Halfus was suddenly killed off screen by this mysterious woman who I'm fighting as the final boss here. Her final line of dialogue to us to start the battle is, "This country needs to be destroyed, but I'm not going to let you be the ones to do it." So, a bit of backstory on Haltis. It actually, there is pretty interesting,
This time, I am the victor.
for all the small amounts of, as small as this game mode is, it's not, a real full game, and it is just a world that they threw together for the Chronicles of the Sword, but they actually have a pretty interesting history and stuff to it. It's a little bit deeper than you'd expect. Our characters explain in dialogue over these two chronicles, that 7 and 8, that Haltis used to be a kingdom just like the others, but they recently overthrew their monarchy, and so you must expect that it's something like the French Revolution. And apparently Mooncalf was a member of the royalty of that country. And now suddenly we're fighting Green, Mileta, out of nowhere, which is very strange, especially if you're not actually reading what's happening. But as it turns out, Mileta suddenly decided to attack. Mileta is like a province of, or something, of Haltis, and its governor just declared himself king of a new kingdom of Mileta, and that the kingdom of Mileta consisted of the entirety of what is currently the Haltis Republic, and so they've basically started a revolution, a civil war, taking advantage of the fact that, they attacked us and we counterattacked and started beating their forces and all of that. So with this sudden two-pronged war in place, now with our enemies revolting against ourselves, basic military strategy would be just, well, our enemies are fighting each other, we don't need to worry about it anymore, we'll retreat. However, upon seeing our former enemies being slaughtered by the droves, and seeing perhaps innocent civilians in the way also being killed, our main character, who's
Do you see now? You never stood a chance.
decides of their own moral volition, without any input from us, the actual player, decides that we have to save them, and so that's the mission here. There's a special loss condition where we lose if 3 characters are killed. If we run into characters, as you saw me run into Larage, they will be saved and be removed from the board safely. However, if they if we let them be defeated, and they have lower stats than normal, so they will lose to any of the people here that they're fighting.
Battle 1. Fight.
And then they'll be removed from the board. And if 3 of them are defeated, we lose the Chronicle. And so I used to try to, when I was playing casually, I tried to spread out and save them all, and I couldn't do it no matter what. And at the time, I was only using infantry, and that's when I realized, okay, let me try some of these other unit types. Bandits are supposed to be faster and better at taking buildings, and voila, I easily spread out and rescued all 5 of them before any of them died. And I was like, holy cow, this is the way to go, and I'd been using bandits ever since. And then, so when I started doing the speedrun, I naturally knew bandits were the best thing, because I'd already proved them casually and just had gotten used to them. Something I didn't have to adjust from my casual playthroughs. But when I started speedrunning, I generally was spreading out many of my units to, because I didn't want them killed. But then when I decided to try testing punching through to see if I would be able to defeat the enemy before they killed enough of the enemies. I suddenly found that they were enough of the Halti soldiers. I suddenly found that they were all in my way instead. And I realized that they're not programmed to attack the Halti soldiers, even though that's the loss condition. They're actually programmed to seek out and kill my units, which seems counterintuitive, but it is the way they're programmed, so So I finally found that yes, it's still a better idea to stick to our group. Oh, that's unfortunate. He almost got caught. So if I delay a little bit, I might be able to get another one off and not fight him. We will see. The other interesting thing about here is that there are 2 optional units available here. One of them I pick up. The other I don't. Cannon, who's right next to us and is getting killed, I don't recruit, unfortunately. She was always the hardest to save as well.
Battle 1.
Because she's pretty weak and being hit by things. This is a separate, I think, or is it a whirlwind? I usually don't fight here, so I'm not even... Oh, you're kidding.
Fight.
Well, hopefully just our leader will be fighting in the next couple. Usually I fight him outside of the stronghold. So... But because I actually picked a slightly different route this time, just on a whim, then I always go up and then over rather than right and then up. And so I just changed it slightly this time and it adjusted the AI, so I fought them there instead. So now I have to give everybody new orders, which is unfortunate, especially since this is a complicated place. Trying to get through some of these roads on the D-pad is rough, because it always follows the trails, but what it follows default is not always intuitive. Yeah, but is it Whirlwind? Yeah, that was Whirlwind, and it was pushing both of us. But Larage, who's the guy who we saved up here, will also join our party. There are actually 3 named units and 2 generic ones. Haltis, and Aelion. Aelion is the apparent leader of this force because she will always join you, even if you let her be killed. You don't have to save her, and she's the one who has dialogue with you after the battle is over, even if you let her get killed. So she's the special one. It's amazing that saving her specifically isn't one of the objectives, but it's just 3 in general. So it's just a little bit quicker to go through here this way and save Larage. Here's our second battle with Mooncalf. And final one, amazingly. You fight her twice quickly, and then you don't fight her again. And coming up next is our first battle against Heil, who we fight 3 times in a row, and is one of the overall most annoying enemies in the game, because he gets successively more annoying each time you fight him. And again, it's 3 times in a row. First time, all guard break. Second time, all unblockable. Last time, offense down, which I'll get to in Chronicle 10. But Heil is pretty much the captain of the guard, supreme general, whatever, of the Moletta forces. And now poor Cannon's going to die. See, now normally an infantry would totally wreck a cavalry, especially one 11 levels higher. But again, because they deliberately made the stats for the Halti soldiers weak for this battle, they will get stomped if you don't save them and just let them fight on their own. Oh, I actually managed to take it before she died. That's amazing. I need to do some testings with a couple of these more, even though I haven't been thinking about it much because, goodness. Okay, Heil decided he was going to be super annoying and give me my first loss. Not a huge deal.
Battle 2. Fight.
Well, got my knight some valuable experience at least. It is, as I say, one of the advantages to dying is that it actually spreads the XP around more and gives you a little bit more. Again, even if I weren't doing, UWC for this one, only one unique weapon and class per character, the 5 dancers would not be beneficial because they are so fragile. As powerful Heil there can show, they die pretty quickly, and I wouldn't get nearly enough experience on any but my main commander. Okay, let's see if I can do this one properly this time. Finally get 5 characters. Yeah. So now you notice there are 2 colors on the map. So Dalkia, which again we were, pretty much done conquering when we were forced to come and fight against Haltis, leaving Ellua to finish it off. Well, they have formed a alliance with Mileta against the terrible, unstoppable nation of Grandal. And so Dalkia has sent reinforcements here to Mileta to battle against us. 2 things of note here. First of all, what the heck is Ellua doing that she's allowed them to send reinforcements to our aid? And second of all, there are 5 particular Dalkia soldiers who came here. This is another defeat all enemies one as well. So no Soulcalibur characters. The Soulcalibur character in the last one that I forgot to point out was Setsuka. She was up in a northern fortress far away. So, of course, it was Luna and her Klesser Pemdo who were sent, which is probably the primary reason why this is defeat all enemies, because they don't want you to cheese through and win the game without giving Luna her proper showdown. This is the only battle against Luna that doesn't give a cutscene, and the only time you'll fight the Klesser Pemdo outside of their fortresses. So now once you take a stronghold, she goes on the offensive. So I've left Sharon here to start picking up some experience from that. So basically my general strategy here is, as usual, trying to consolidate as many enemies into as few battles as possible. So I'm not aggressively attacking and taking the main stronghold as fast as I would like to or would in any normal stronghold. Oh, that's what I forgot with her, is the headband. She's supposed to have a headband. How could I forget that? Oh, well. Sharon is a common character I use. The base look of her is... she's a character I designed specifically based on the female samurai from Final Fantasy Tactics. I just liked the look of that. Doesn't have the breastplate in Sharin's design. I generally just don't put the breastplate on, even though they do have that in the artwork and stuff for it. Oops, that didn't quite work, but oh well. Come on.
Battle 4, fight.
Samurai are not quite as good as Swordmasters, but since they actually gain more attack as they level up until level 99, they're still really, really good. Especially when you can use this katana skill. This shoulder charge that I use is not quite so unstoppable as most of the moves that I abuse with. But when it hits, it does automatically go into the lift up attack follow-up. giving me an opportunity to air juggle when I do it right, and or push them towards the edge for an easy ring out. Plus, they, just combined with the fact that only Samurai and Swordmasters, who have the highest attack power in the game, can use it, means that it's a strong weapon on its own. Plus, this Murasame is essentially the exact same as a Soul Edge. It has a high amount of bonus attack power, slowly drains my life, but gives me back life when I deal damage, and vampiric weapons that steals life from the enemy and gives it to you are way broken in Soulcalibur 3. In Soulcalibur 2, the best life-gaining weapons were ones that gave you back weapons for each attack you did. They could refill your health in a single move with, like, Sung Mina's ultimate weapon. I can't remember what that stupid fan is called. I should know it, but I can't think of it right now. But it restores life, so if you do her whirling attack where she spins her weapon around back and forth, that will actually restore her health from empty to full just about in a single use of the ability. It's absurd how much health you get back. They greatly reduce the amount of those kinds of weapons in this game, though they're still good, but vampiric weapons give almost 100% the damage you deal, life you gain back. So you have big, heavy-hitting attacks like the Katana with those weapon styles, or Soul Edge from Iron Sword, or Soul of Nightmare. You get back a lot of health really fast.
Battle 1. Fight.
Nice start. Kunai has a couple of interesting things. This triple kick is really hard to use, but when it lands, the enemy can't do anything about it, and it does a lot of damage. And again, there are all these moves that if you're looking, especially if you see that they might be defending before I start, it looks like they're even unblockable. But it just turns out that the AI is so confused by, I would guess, so many weapon styles, 40 different weapon styles, that it's got faulty programming in defending. So with certain attacks, they just don't know how to defend properly most of the time, except for the most extreme AI, or sometimes when their AI triggers go really weird. But it means that there's many attacks, and I abuse as many of those as I can, where one or more of the hits, they almost never are able to block. Even though they block the rest of them, they sometimes just can't block others. And so that running kick is supremely good, especially with the super damage it does, especially if the last hit lands right as they're getting up, because when you hit enemies on the ground, they take a lot less damage. But if they're in the act of getting up, they count as standing, so they can take a huge amount of damage.
I'm sorry, but I must move on.
If that isn't working for some reason, or moving around too much and I can't land it, I have a couple of different follow-ups I can use instead that are decent for the kunai as well. Mostly I'm relying on that kick, but it's not... I might make them higher, but I kind of actually like the kunai being in the 5th slot. I really prefer it over the Iron Sword in most cases. Even though the Iron Sword is pretty reliable to hit, it's very easy to sidestep and leaves you open for a long time. Okay. Actually. All right. Yeah, I won't even reach. That's fine.
Decisive battle.
That was a slight waste. I was hoping to get a little more experience from my barbarian there. I thought that they would actually manage to take it right before the leader arrived. Oh well. So this is a pretty good Chronicle 9, provided that Heil isn't too bad. But unfortunately, as you can see, this flaming on their weapon means that all attacks are unblockable. So usually the game actually does seem to compensate for that by having the AI be less aggressive, although that's not always the case. And sometimes any of them could just flip on the super aggressive switch and start attacking like crazy, and then there's nothing I can do about it because I can't block. I have to try and get out of the way, or maybe duck or jump over, but especially for me, my reflexes aren't all that good on doing all those in this game. The spin to win is really incredible because most of the time the AI will actually let go of the block on the perfect frame where the hit lands, so they end up not blocking. That is actually the more dangerous thing, is if he decides to get up more quickly, because then that breaks the combo.
Good match.
Or if he delays getting up rather than getting up quickly, I mean. So, very, very good Chronicle 9. That's actually one of the best Chronicle 9s I've ever done for overall time. Getting 10 to 11 minutes is very hard on this one, simply because of the chaos of trying to manipulate the 15 different AIs to work properly. So that's my first big time save of this run. I'm hoping to cut at least 20 minutes off of this from my initial run. So Chronicle 10 is one of the more annoying ones, and we get a lot of dialogue and info dumps here. There's quite a lot going on. This is the final battle against Moleta. We've come to their capital here, and King Demuth is suddenly being upstaged by this mysterious figure who it's hard to tell, because when we finally see him, he's actually in different garb than he was the first time, but it's the bandit leader that we encountered all the way back in Chronicle 3. And so apparently he's been the one manipulating this war and incited Demuth to declare himself king of Moleta and start this rebellion, and that in the chaos of all of this war, he'd be able to rise to power and have a kingdom of his own. And he was just about to get rid of King Demuth when we showed up. So once again, we conveniently stopped our potential enemies from killing each other by our very insistent, timely arrival. So first we have to deal with Heil and Demuth, and then we get to deal with Chester, the instigator of the Mantis War. Now, he's a bit of a walking spoiler, because in the very introduction to the game, it actually mentions Chester, although when you first meet him, he's only question mark, question mark, question mark. You don't get to see his name until this time right here. Okay, I do have them both. Good. Slight thing I'm doing there in order to entice these two guys on the side to rush forward rather than rushing back to defend here. So that's two characters I won't have to fight. Now I have received a recent idea that I could avoid these 8 soldiers here attacking me after I take this stronghold by letting them take it and then letting them all run past and then taking it back. But that would probably take more time than fighting the battles. It is something I ought to try out just for the heck of it, because you never know. But considering how much time it takes for take down strongholds, and especially considering the speed of their knights moving through it, I really don't think it would save time. But
Like you dares
I'll try
to
it out
take
sometime.
on This country, this king.
Battle 1. Fight.
Oh yeah, what a country, what a king. I think his slide is slightly, his sprite is, or his character here, his model is slightly special as well. I think he's a little bit girthier, as it were, than your standard model. It's not just his equipment that is doing that. So notice the chip damage I'm doing. This wonderful stronghold has the rare offense down property, which might as well be called defense up. It means that we do chip damage to the enemy. And this is where I learned that dancers are awesome, because even though I'm doing chip damage, Heil can't do anything about it. Heil is a really good AI who's very good at blocking most attacks, including the shoulder charge from katanas. And I started out using just Swordmasters with katanas.
Sorry, but I must move on.
And then I went to Dancer, and I was a little bit afraid of them and was a little bit too nervous and died a couple of times early on and wasn't really convinced that when I was first trying out a dancer leader, maybe it wasn't the best idea. That I came to this fight, stomped him like that, and was like, okay, dancers are worth it, if only for this fight, because otherwise it is a royal pain. And when you're playing casually, this is one of a lot of people's most hated Chronicles, because you're dealing with a lot of tough things here, especially if you're trying to defeat all the Soulcalibur characters. The worst Soulcalibur character is there to our upper left in that stronghold in an ice, and it's Sung Mina, who happens to be my favorite Soulcalibur character. But she's the biggest pain to fight in Soulcalibur 3, because in Chronicles of the Sword, I mean, because she is the only Soulcalibur character in an ice stronghold. And she is AI programmed to take advantage of the ice. She uses a lot of wide attacks that you can block, but because you're on ice, they'll push you backwards. She's in a small arena that's totally open, so it's easy to get pushed off. It is just an absolute pain to fight her. Luckily, on any percent, we don't have to worry about that. Couldn't quite reach. Come on. There we go. Even not counting her, though, you have this incredibly difficult stronghold to take with usually 3 enemies. I manipulated it to be just 2, but normally when you fight it, you're probably getting 3 locked in there. And one of whom is incredibly difficult, both in his stats and his AI. And it takes forever to chip him down. And then immediately after that, and you take this stronghold, suddenly you're attacked by these 8 guys. It's incredibly annoying and rough to deal with. Not quite so bad in the... Come on, stop that. This is what I say about the AI of this game being one of the worst in all of Soulcalibur, because they will do guard impacts almost at will. Sometimes even on attacks that otherwise are very abusable. They have a really hard time blocking that attack, and when they decide to block it, they instead decide that they're just going to perfect guard impact it instead. Oh my word. All these guys have really good and aggressive AI, so it's tough to beat them. Plus, it seems that the offense down is still affecting us instead of the enemy. I don't know if that's a bug or it's intended, or if it's even really the case, but it really feels like we are doing a lot less damage to them than they are to us, even though it's the other way around when you're first fighting. Or it's the same thing that even though we're possessing the stronghold now, and it should be the other way around. Okay, the biggest problem with that death and dying like that is that, well, now I'm just going to wait for the other 3 to show up. Okay, they're all here. Now, one of the reasons I started the fight early is because that even though it seems like it's a non-grid-based map, it actually is grid-based. And only a certain number of units can fit into each grid, each square on the map. And allied units and enemy units cannot share the map, so you may have noticed when enemies are charging each other that certain of them will just stop and wait for a bit until his enemy stops moving too before they'll hit each other. One of them will keep moving a little longer, and that's because they have to fall into a certain position with each in grid before they can start fighting, and one of them will reach theirs first because their movement isn't their progress of their movement is not fully grid based. and only 5 units can fit in a grid, which doesn't matter on our side because we only get 5 units maximum. But when there are so many enemies, if they're all charging down a single lane, they will eventually get stuck behind each other waiting. It's one of the, very similar to the whole idea behind my plug strategy. And so there are 8 coming here, but only 5 can attack the stronghold at a time because only 5 can enter the square right next to the stronghold. If I tried to, and again, I want to minimize the number of different battles that I get engaged in. So letting all 5 arrive and then fighting them at once and then letting the last 3 show up is my general strategy and the preferred way to do it. A lot of people know about this AB Iron Sword attack and really like it. And you can see both its goodness and its full problems here. They almost never block the second attack, and they can't block the second attack consistently. However, it's also really easy to sidestep. That's the disadvantage to it. I can't believe that he's whipping as many attacks as he is, so... It would be a little bit quicker if I were using all Swordmasters, that's for certain. But maybe, with how some of these battles are taking, maybe it actually would be a decent idea to let them pass through on this category. Something to think about in the future. Okay.
I won't hold back next time.
A lot of valuable levels for my knight, but I probably should go ahead and take advantage of the higher damage of the kunai and the katana for defending this stronghold, if nothing else, because of how the offense down seems to affect it. I don't have a real experience route. If I were a more serious speedrunner, which one of the reasons I'm not is because I'm the only one who runs Soulcalibur III Chronicles of the Sword. It's my baby and no one else is. Some people have said they might think about it, but nobody has done it yet, so I'm still alone in it. But because of that, I'm not super concerned. But if I were more of a hardcore speedrunner, I'd be probably planning out which fights I want to take with which characters to properly divide my experience. Instead, I just get to points where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily need to fight with my main character here. I want to get experience for someone. Who do I choose? Let's do this one. And so that was kind of the point there, but it was a little bit rough because they were not the highest damage characters that I was using. Maybe it isn't the effect of offense down because Kierkegaard also is taking so little damage. They just have ridiculous, all of them have ridiculously high stats.
It was a decent match.
Even so, you can see how quickly good triple kicks from the assassin from kunai can take down enemies like this. And Kierkegaard is another character who will start the battle with you automatically. He doesn't want to allow you to cheese him by attacking him with 5 knights on the field and ganging up on him, since he doesn't move. And strangely, those two cavalry, even though I triggered their advance script, and they advanced and took 2 of my strongholds, they're not programmed to attack the main one, so they're just sitting there waiting. They just don't know what to do.
Decisive battle.
Now, for one of the primary villains of the game, Chester here is quite disappointing. He's using the dagger style, which a lot of people playing the game casually like because it gives you bombs that you throw, which, yay, bombs, oh, they're cool. And bombs are the best part of the set, but unfortunately they're the only halfway decent part. You have a short-range weapon that doesn't attack as fast as like Talim's or Taki's, and doesn't do that much damage either.
And Dalkia against one another, and then rise to power during the resulting chaos. But because of your unexpected meddling, my plan is in ruins. You will pay dearly for this.
Battle 1. Fight.
His AI isn't great either, no matter what. There are times when he can kill you because with the way the random AI works, if they decide to be aggressive and start attacking you first and make use of all their properties, which randomly any of them could just trigger that flag and decide to do it, he can kill you, but it's really, really rare. When I do lose to him, it's usually because I've been beaten up in my other fights and I'm down to like a quarter of health or something. He's never taken out more than a single character, and even in that condition. Even with the death, not a bad Chronicle 10. I really had a rough time during the middle towards endish, which is why I feel I can save 20 minutes. Okay, so now we've defeated Mileta, and we realize, wait, so Dalkia attacked us, so what happened to Ellua? So without waiting for orders, we rush back off to Dalkia to find out what's going on, and we find Ellua here stonewalled by this little mountain pass where the Klesser have set up their final fortifications. Now, quick little bit of fridge thinking here. This is a super duper narrow pass, and the only way past it is through the stronghold that she was throwing. Yet somehow the Klesser and Luna were all able to go out and attack me. So how on earth did she allow them to get past and then get stonewalled here? You know, she just let them pass to attack me and then let them come back after I sent them packing with their tails between their legs? How pathetic. So anyway, the Klesser are in their ultimate forms now. They each have unique weapons, and they have special properties with 2. So for fire, she has Cruel Sword, which gives all unblockable plus blast. You can see the little sparks that were on my character if you were paying attention. That means that I would suffer from a blast effect and suffer increased knockback. However, it's slightly bugged. Several of the missions are in various ways. The slight bug on blast is that it doesn't always, not all knockback attacks do proper knockback for some reason. Some of them do, but many of them just instead do extra frames of damage, so they do a bunch of bonus damage and stuff, which is a little weird. It's just not very consistent. It's also not something that really you'll almost ever see because, like most all unblockables, she tends to be rather reserved, and the only other time you find Blast, he's a super wimp and you wipe him out fast. So next is Ellua of Water with Sacred Field, which gives us ice. So this is our last time we'll have to deal with ice, actually, thank goodness. And Ellua tends to be very, very poor AI. The other part of Sacred Field is Cure, which is a minor annoyance sometimes. There's sometimes where you get the enemy to a sliver of health with your third attack and you realize if they didn't have Cure, I would have killed them already. So you need to do one extra hit, but that's pretty rare. Usually doesn't even do enough to be noticed. I made a mistake there. I should have just done a regular spin. There we go.
You had enough? This fight was decided by fate.
All right, next up is Ellua of Wind. The name of her mission is Holy Wings, and it's a combination of Whirlwind and Aerial Wind. So we've already experienced Whirlwind, of course, and this is a strong Whirlwind that has a very strong possibility of spoiling my spin to win combo by pushing me too far away so I can't hit her with the follow-up when she stands up. However, the other portion of it, Aerial Wind, is something you won't even notice. Aerial Wind is only in a few places in the game, and she has almost no weapons that really take advantage of Aerial Wind. It's the same thing with Heal Do. Her weapon isn't really very good with ice, actually. She doesn't have a lot of the kinds of attacks Sung Mina has that are big, wide, sweeping, and long range and push, so they're difficult to avoid and do a lot of pushback. And by the same token, Aerial Wind makes you float up into the air after you get hit by a knock up, a knock into the air attack. And there you can see the Whirlwind made me miss. But her skill set has almost no attacks that lift up like that. And she almost never uses the ones she does have, so you just never see it. But the Whirlwind is more than enough problems on its own. So each of these actually gets steadily worse, except for Luna's, which is actually pretty pathetic by comparison. Because next up we have Aeg of Earth, and she has the unique property of Impregnable, which is a combination of Quake, which we've avoided seeing for now up to this point. But it'll do our narrator will do a 3-second countdown, and at the end of it, if we're standing on the ground, and we will get hit by a shake stun and be vulnerable. But the second part is the real problem. Guardian Force means that you are unaffected by any kind of effect. You don't suffer block stun, you don't suffer guard break stun, you don't suffer hit stuns. You ignore everything. It's like, even though you take damage, it just passes through you without apparently doing anything, and it's just gosh awful. Especially when Quake is shaking you up so much. So she can literally just let you attack and block, and then attack you while you can see it in action now. And there's the stun of Quake making it worse. The good news is she isn't that strong. Her stats are not super great, and her weapon does damage to her when she attacks. Unfortunately, if she chooses to do a lot of throws like that, I'm in big trouble. Losing a character is pretty average. Sometimes I can beat her without losing a character, but she just needs to be very cooperative. This is entirely an RNG fight. It's just on how much she decides to throw me and be aggressive in general, rather than letting me sit and attack a bit. Gosh darn it, stop the throws. The Assassin's front kick does a lot of little attacks that actually turns out to be very, very good for dealing with Guardian Force. It's something I discovered during my first run, and really helped out against Gerardo now. So in some ways, Aeg is now worse than Gerardo, who had always been the hardest before. But we'll get to that eventually. When one character is defeated, it's not worth building up the stronghold so she'll regenerate. Even with 4 characters, by the time Shireen does regenerate, we'll have pretty much taken this out. She will respawn just in time for me to conquer the stronghold, so it does no good to revive her. Or to up the stronghold so she would be closer to the battle upon reviving. She will revive automatically. I can't do anything about it. Now, Luna's ability is reserve offense up, her mission, I mean, and it's not a great thing, though it can be dangerous under certain circumstances, but not really in her hands, because she doesn't have a very good, strong offensive set or style, class or style. But what that weird term means is that as your health goes down, the damage you do goes up. So a bit of a desperation mode kind of effect.
It will not be like our previous
But usually when I get them down low, I'm going to wipe them out anyway, and it's a kind of it's a small multiplicative effect, so her already low damage doesn't get multiplied as high. And she's done, so.
I'm sorry, but I must move on.
Other than offense down, which just makes you deal so much more damage, none of the things that affect like offense or defense in normal ways are really a problem, or do subtle things. It's all the stuff that affects your movement that are the real troublesome missions. Or, you know, in the case of Guardian Force, that affect how easy you are to stun. So here's the final battle against Dalkia. Let's see, what levels are we? Shireen is 10. Okay, we'll leave you at 1, everybody else at 4. And this seems to be the best way to do this one. So this is a weird chronicle since it gives us a couple of extra strongholds, but it spreads them out. And then there are like 15 enemies charging us, similar to a couple of these others. So it's just a royal pain. Especially since they're coming from so many angles, it's really hard to do this optimally. And it took me a while to figure out a semi-optimal strat, which I'm still not happy with, but it's what I have to do. Essentially, I just... because so many enemies will just come charging straight for my main stronghold, if I leave it alone, they will conquer it before I can fight through the middle to reach the enemy. So attacking from this side prompts some of them to come here, which is fine. And then once all the enemies have reached my main stronghold, I'll wipe them out in one swift go.
Decisive battle.
Take this stronghold with this 3, wait and do 2 more. There might be a couple more ways I could twist optimize this. Anyway, the 2 people who aren't moving off on the side strongholds are our 2 Soulcalibur characters of this map, Raphael, who is a knight, and Cassandra, who is a sage.
Battle 1. Fight.
Neither are particularly difficult or annoying. They're some of the worst AIs as far as I've noticed on from the Soulcalibur characters sets.
Battle 2. Fight.
It's over.
These are all very strong AI opponents, and they're very good against the Dancer. I used to leave my Dancer back to defend the main stronghold,
Battle 3.
which ended up being a mistake, because oftentimes the Dancer won't be able to survive all 7 or 8 people attacking, or at least as it was. I think it's less now than it used to be with a slight change-up I've made to my strategy. But regardless, I couldn't get through all of them with the Dancer, and they would die, and then they would finish off the stronghold, and I'd lose the stronghold and have to restart the mission after fighting them for like 8 minutes. So that's an 8-minute time loss. And then I realized that, you know, it's because at this point against really good AI with higher stats than I have, since I'm a puny Dancer and they're deliberately strong enemies, it's... the glass cannon nature of the Dancer makes those successive fights difficult and dangerous. But, so what I should be doing is... okay, Irelia, go ahead and... oh, darn, this was too early. I make a lot of small mistakes here, not a big deal, though. Because the game pauses when... you're issuing orders, you generally only want to issue orders when absolutely necessary. Which is why I also, I haven't mentioned this yet, but one of the reasons why I oftentimes, if there's an enemy advancing on me and I'm advancing in a similar fashion, I will oftentimes delay sending out the 2nd and 3rd and maybe 4th and 5th troops. And the whole reason for that is because when a character enters Soulcalibur combat, all of their given orders are cancelled. But if they were not involved in the combat, their orders stand. So I only have to issue new orders for characters who were involved in the battle. So if I send one character forward first and start the battle immediately upon meeting the enemy, they will not lose the guys behind will not lose their order set. So even though they're a little bit behind, it ends up saving me real time because the or I don't have to pause the game to issue orders again, especially if they're particularly long orders.
Battle 1. Fight.
I actually really like a lot of the dialogue lines in this game. It's one of the reasons why I can play it so much. Even though it's often very repetitive and stuff, it's just I get no end of amusement and joy out of it. And one of the things I don't like about the assassin is that they are often a very... they're an extremely quiet voice. You need to go as well. They oftentimes replace what you would consider standard dialogue with just, you know, giving little key eyes, as it were. But yeah, having a katana wielder back to defend this place, because if I lose pretty much to any of these guys, even one person will be strong enough to take the stronghold before I can take the enemies, or before they manage to regenerate. And if I lose my main stronghold, I lose the game. Or the Chronicle at least, and then I have to restart the Chronicle. If you restart the Chronicle, you keep any experience you gained, but needless to say, it's a huge time loss. But because of the lifesteal ability restoring so much health, it's just a lot safer to be using somebody like the katana, which can deal so many fast, strong attacks to restore life so quickly.
Battle 2. Fight.
Even though the gradual health restore of weapons like Soulcalibur on Xianghua are nice, but not particularly good in the speedrun, because you just can't stall out enough for them to be useful, or else you lose a lot of time. And especially for a place like the Dancer, it takes a very long time to restore enough health to mean anything, since they're so fragile. The Shutenso ultimate kunai weapon on my assassin is similar, but it also raises defense, and the assassin actually has better defense naturally than the Dancer by quite a lot, as well as a little bit more hit points. They're kind of low on hit points, assassins, but not nearly as bad as Dancers. So it makes a little bit more difference for them, but that's why their durability isn't as good. But with vampiric weapons, you can restore your health really quickly. Which is also one of the reasons why I don't mind sticking to Iron Sword Soul Edge Knight as my fourth character. It would be nice if I could figure out a way to avoid having to kill some of those guys, but it's very, very hard because there are just so many of them intent largely on taking out the main stronghold. So Cassandra over here on the right. Raphael way over on the other side to the left. So you have to spread out and take not only every enemy, but almost every stronghold when you're doing SC% here. All right. Now, if I can get through these battles without too much trouble, I'm going to be in great shape. Gain back a little bit more time on this Chronicle as well. Next Chronicle, I don't have too much time to gain.
Final battle, fight.
That was weird. And it was going so well.
You should really give up. Strength is everything.
Barbarian line. Oh yeah, I can give these orders now. Slight delay before the next ones. Who is that even? Her? That's fine. I might very well lose her here, in which case I'm going to fortify this just in case, because that takes long enough. It might be worth it. Slight time loss, but could end up saving a little bit if things go badly. Which are very possible since the enemy decided to be really annoying. Here's our second battle against Rowan. He forces combat, which is nice.
Two heroes find battle one, fight.
There we go. Oh, that was nice. That's one of the reasons why Barbarian Soul of Edge is Soul of Nightmare rather, with Soul Edge is a decent alternative when you can't use all katanas. Barbarian, the biggest problem is that as a Barbarian, their stats are really awful. Attack is decent and hit points are decent, but the hit points mean nothing when their vitality is so low. So, not the best, but they are able to get back a lot of those hit points really fast.
Are you out of you should really I'm sorry, but I must move on.
Okay, that went extremely well. Got her some good experience. Which means that was building up that was a waste, but that's okay. So now we fight the Queen of Dalkia, Queen Irelia, who is the most pathetic boss in the game, with only one other contender for the throne. Unless, you know, you really want to count, like, the tutorial nobodies or something. But relative to their level, this one and one other will fight in 2 more Chronicles on Chronicle 14 are just really pathetic, especially since she gets a cutscene and everything. Now, in basic reality, you wouldn't expect a queen who mostly sits in state to be comparable warrior to her generals and commanders. But even so, since she is the final boss of Dalkia and gets this big epic speech to us that I'm talking over, you'd think she'd be worth something, but she is pathetic. Low stats, not good AI. She's defeated me once, the hundreds of times I've played this game, when I had almost no health left. So she managed to get in one lucky aggressive hit because I was one hit from death. That's it. I'm surprised I didn't lose more time on Chronicle 12 before. I'm only gaining 30 or so seconds because I had some massive mess-ups. I guess maybe my battles were a little slow this time around. So a year has passed. We conquered all of our enemies, so there are no enemies left to fight, right? Well, no. General Gerardo has suddenly risen up in rebellion and raised a force to fight, and so now we're fighting purple rebels, which makes sense since, Grandal is red and blue, that rebels should be a mix of those colors. And once again, normally we might make other moral decisions, or it'd be neat to have them here, but even though we can't believe that Gerardo would, just rebel against the Empire, he must have a good reason, we just head out to do our job as when we're assigned the head of the anti-rebel task force, with Ellua as our second in command. Made worse is the fact that in a casual playthrough at least, and in MCO, all of our previous party members were taken away from us, except for Ellua. And so all we have left is 3 new characters who've been given to us, one of whom is a kunai assassin, so Tina is really cool. The other 2 are Knife, which I was talking about disparagingly earlier, so yeah, not bad. And then there's he's a super crazy aggressive tambourine user. I've never seen them use those attacks on me before. And a steel fan, which is also pretty awful. It has one kind of abusable move I can spam, but it's slow and it's safe, but it's pretty slow. Similar to bombs from the dagger period. And tried to do anything else with the short-range weapon, it's not really that great.
This time, I am the victor.
So that's the bit in a casual playthrough. When you're making your custom characters, it's not quite so bad. The only annoying thing is we're down to 4. This map, it isn't as big a deal because it's pretty small. Same with the next one. Let's see. Let me calculate this really quick. 350.
Decisive battle.
300 versus 3 characters. I'm going to give it another shot, yeah.
Battle 1. Fight.
Now, they do an interesting thing with the rebels, too. They seem to have a lot more... Even though we fought a bunch of characters with custom outfits, they still have seemed, like soldiers in armor kind of stuff. But now, as part of the rebels, we'll be seeing a lot of enemies who look more normal. Like literally conscripted townspeople who've joined the rebellion kind of thing. This will be a good time to test, doing a quick test here, which I often do. I'm going for bigger, fighting less people versus taking more strongholds to see if it's any faster. Also, it looks like it's a slightly shorter running route, so it's hard to say.
Final battle.
This is a slightly more annoying mission on SC% because there are 3 Soulcalibur characters here. 2 in one place and 1 in another. It's Keelik and Xianghua together, and then Maxi on the map with them, which makes sense since those 3 are the most together group over the course of the Soulcalibur games. I'll show those off in a minute here once I'm done giving my orders. Yeah, that's definitely shorter. I am spending more time taking strongholds, but I'm fighting only 1 guy instead of 3. And I'm running through less time. Because, yeah, that's 250 versus 300, so that's 550 versus 350. So I'm losing time for about 50 swings. Divided by 4 would be about 12-ish seconds, which isn't too bad. 13 seconds, maybe. Yeah, that probably is faster versus fighting 3 characters. So Keelik and Xianghua are over here. Fighting them both at once is kind of tough. Luckily, they're both weak classes as Monk and Dancer. Maxi, who is the other monk, is inside of this building right here with all unblockable. And that's not nearly as scary as it sounds because, once again, they generally have less aggressive moves anyway, and Maxi's wind-ups, for all of his wind-ups for his weapon style, just use up so much time. He has lots of vulnerabilities. Yeah, I think I tried this once recently and found that I actually liked it. This strat of going south instead of north and skipping those fights. That actually works pretty well. It probably would be better to go top in SC% because I've had to spread my characters out so much. The worst part is I can usually beat these 2 with 1 character, but if I only send 1 character and I lose, that's a big time loss because then he'll regenerate. I have to send him all the way down here again. And then he may lose again while I'm taking everything else. So just to be safe, I always have to send 2 characters. And that eats up, and so I only have 2 characters to be actually progressing towards the goal. So Brunhild is one of the more annoying fights in the game because this is our first look at Separate, which, like Whirlwind, is a movement ability. It just pushes me away and does nothing else. And it makes it almost impossible to keep up my spin to win stun lock combo. Very, very annoying. And look at how far I'm being pushed back, even before the battle starts. She is being at least not super bad. That's super bad. I don't want her to swing wide because I get a sidestep from using this rush. This rush is a little bit more reliable than the spin because... Okay, near the edge is where I can use it, though, because she can't go back far enough unless... If she's going back farther, it means she's going over the edge. But so that wasn't too bad. That was a pretty good Brunhild fight. It can be super duper bad. Yeah, it's comparable time, it seems. Might be slightly slower to go south, I don't know. Okay, so this is a little bit of a weird chronicle. We have these conversations going on between Strife and Chester. Strife is the emperor of the Grandal Empire, and Chester was the guy we just killed, but apparently he's not dead, and now he's working for Strife. And it makes it sound like, and they drop a lot of hints through that conversation and through some comments by some of our characters that they are suspicious of these rebels who are suddenly surrounding us in the middle of the night without warning. And they suspect that there may be
Decisive battle.
more to it than that. Ellua is super dismissive of it, as we'll get to. But this event will get referenced later. Now, this is the first Chronicle with the dangerous...
This fight was decided by fate.
The very dangerous loss condition that I lose if my main character is defeated. Luckily, this is the largest collection of weaklings in the game. These guys have abnormally low stats, which makes this wonderful base race strategy viable and entertaining. But it's a... The other interesting thing, a very unique thing about this particular mission is that it is the only time that the Soulcalibur characters, Mitsurugi, they're in the southeastern one, and Taki in the middle western one, will actually interact with other characters. Because whenever you attack a Soulcalibur character, they have a pithy 1 or 2 liners that they will pop out. They'll utter, a little line or two based on the kinds of lines that they have in the normal game. And then after you defeat them, they'll have another line, which is often actually their victory line instead. But that's it. They just have a couple lines after victory or defeat. However, before fighting Mitsurugi and Taki, both of them will have conversation from other characters interjected. Right before the Mitsurugi fight, when he says the battle is boring, the commander of the enemy forces here, Ignis, these supposed rebel forces, will say, "You can have this one," which, at least to me, seems to be suggesting that he's hired Mitsurugi as a mercenary for this battle, which makes sense because that's Mitsurugi's whole spiel. Although they sometimes call him a samurai, he isn't. He is a mercenary who has obtained a samurai sword and taught himself swordsmanship. So him being a mercenary makes sense. Taki, on the other hand, tells you not to get involved with that sword because that's all she's obsessed with. And when Ellua just tells her, "Get out of our way," in response, she says, "Those eyes, you've been possessed by the cursed sword." And, unless you are using custom characters with Soul Edge at this point, you've never seen or really heard much of Soul Edge. So it's like, no, Ellula's just lawful stupid. She's not possessed with the cursed sword. But it's just interesting because those interactions are nowhere else in Chronicles, and I'm not sure why they decided to do that. I wonder if it was something they were planning for all the time but just couldn't come up with anything else, or just something they decided to do for this Chronicle to make it memorable. I don't know. There's no reason I can see why they do it, but regardless, this is an interesting base race style map, the way I do it on any percent, because these 3 characters have swarmed, and luckily I have a very strong stronghold, and the enemy's final stronghold is very weak. So even though I seem to be in danger of losing my main stronghold, I will just barely pull this out, believe it or not. But we better keep an eye on our main stronghold just to be sure. See, now normally, because these guys are all infantry, they should be doing 4 points of damage to my main stronghold, but because they've been given deliberately very weak stats in both battle and on the field, they only do 2 points of damage a swing. So, tink, 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 tink. If they weren't underpowered, I would have to keep a character back here to defend the place, as I do on other Chronicles, or else risk losing it. So Ignis, the boss we're about to be fighting, is, oh wow, it's getting close, 28, 26, 22. Oh no, maybe I'm not going to make it. Oh, I made it.
Decisive battle.
Took a little bit of experimentation to figure out how far I could push it. But he has Blast, which again doesn't have much of an effect. He's also extremely weak, only level 23 when we've been fighting guys in the mid-30s, and his stats are low, so he is, along with Irelia, who he just fought in Chronicle 12, one of the most disappointing bosses in the entire game. So that's that dangerous Chronicle out of the way. And now we move on to the final Chronicle against Gerardo himself, our second and final Gerardo fight, the leader of the rebels. So Tina suspects something about these rebels, that they're Grandal people, because they have Grandal paraphernalia about. But as Emilia points out, you know, that shouldn't be strange, because the rebels were citizens of Grandal, and they probably still believe in Grandal. It's sad that we have to fight former comrades because they made a bad decision to go against the Empire. Yep. Unfortunately, as I say, she is lawful stupid and totally follows my country, right or wrong. Now, I actually could lose time on this Chronicle because it went so well last time. I can only hope that it goes just as well. On the other hand, I could gain back time if it goes as well and I don't make a small mistake that I made. Yeah, this is fine, actually. It works out better this way. Battle. That's what I want.
Final battle. Fight.
It was a decent match.
Now, this Chronicle involves a similar base race, but I have to, one of the reasons I'm back here defending this is I have to take a lot more care with it, because it's the opposite of last time. Where last Chronicle, I had the level 5 and I had really weak enemies doing it. This time, it's the enemy has the level 5 and mine is only level 4. And the enemies, there are a lot more of them and they are a lot more powerful. So I popped that up. Now, the thing that I messed up on last time was I forgot to build up that stronghold. And I just barely survived with the setup I've got here. And building that up is one of the strategies for it. And so I had to fight them instead, which wasted a little bit of time with the loading screen and the 2 additional battles. Although I made up all that time by having a miraculously good Gerardo fight, which I don't know if I can replicate, but we'll see.
Battle 1. Fight. battle, fight. Fight.
Okay, I'm losing a bit too much health.
It looks like I got lucky.
So the good news is, it was my assassin with the kunai who was able to beat Gerardo without losing, which saves a lot of time. The bad news is, I think I had more health than that, even though I was fighting 3 battles, so winning with that amount of health is going to be a little bit tougher. So now we're just fighting our way through. Now, the big reason I want to do it like this is, once again, of course, I want to minimize the number of battles I face. And even though there's a lot of enemies on this map, I can avoid most of them by figuring out this strategy, which I'm very proud of. It took me a while to put this together. We also skipped the 2 Soulcalibur characters, so this strategy isn't viable on SC%. Yoshimitsu and Voldo are both just sitting there on the map. But there are, similar to Chronicle 2, I mentioned that there are optional characters, and in Chronicle 2, the first time you fight Gerardo, if you fight Jinkai or Shaoxin or both, one of them will end up joining you later. The same thing happens here. Rudiger and Feofan, the 2, I guess, leaders, sub-commanders under Gerardo, one of them will join you at the next battle, whoever you defeat first. And they have unlike Jinkai and Shaoxin, they have a lot of dialogue when they join you. So avoiding that is a super duper good idea. However, it's easier said than done, because they're both charging down the middle, and since they're intent on taking out my stronghold, and my stronghold is so weak, it's really hard to avoid Rudiger and Feofan both. And I thought that it was impossible for the longest time, until I started thinking about it, and I tried experimenting with various things, and I sat down and did it and worked this out. And after a couple of tries, I've gotten it so it's pretty reliable now. And I'm rather quite proud of it, because it not only saves time from the fights in this battle, but it ends up saving, 10 to 15 seconds worth of dialogue, because there's that much dialogue when one of those 2 is there in the start of the next Chronicle, which I'll explain a bit about next time. Now, this is the only battle in the game where, the only stronghold battle where your main character does not take the lead. Pretty much whoever is top of your list, so your main character and then whoever is next in the list, will always be the person who will fight first when you are defending a stronghold or attacking a stronghold with more than one character. But this battle, for some reason, they always seem to choose whoever is weakest, either in level, or if somebody is more injured than others, it will choose them instead. Now, Gerardo is our second battle with Guardian Force, so he is totally unstoppable. He hurts himself when he attacks, but once again, that doesn't count on if he's not attacking. And okay, nope, this isn't going nearly as well, unfortunately. I knew that I was too low for this to be to work this time. Luckily, my health does regenerate, so with my increased defense, I'm not taking a huge amount of damage, so I'm surviving longer than I should. But I'm really surviving longer than I thought. There we go. Wasn't too bad considering I was half dead.
Battle 2, fight.
But pretty much, I'm not sure how the order goes afterwards. It doesn't seem to have a lot of sense to it. But your main character will always go last in this battle alone, I'm pretty sure. Because the few times that he's killed 4 of my people, and holy cow, he's... Two down. That's a little bit rough. So yeah, this is going to be about break even because of the extra 2 battles I fought last time.
Let's set.
Battle 3. Fight.
Goodness, 3. He's about to kill himself, though.
Please get out of my.
Battle 4. Fight.
Well, Sierra probably needed the massive experience more than anyone.
It looks like I'm just too strong for you.
6 big levels for my knight. Now, as you can see, there's a 30-minute jump in Chronicle 16, and that's where I'm going to need to get it. So, here's the longest cutscene in the game.
Right now, your strength.
If you need a break, this is the best time to do it. Since, I didn't mention before, but cutscenes are unskippable, unfortunately. Having skippable cutscenes would be kind of a... I kind of like not having them skippable because these things are kind of cheesy and fun to see, and there aren't too many of them, so they don't, like, super clog out and make the game unbearable like they do in, you know, very long games with lots of cutscenes. But skipping it would make it a better speed run overall. It would save some time. It'd be fun. It'd be a nice thing to have if they were ever to do an HD remaster of this. And then suddenly, oh, Soul Edge, oh, who's that? You likely will not even know the first time you play that that's Emperor Strife, since they don't really introduce him anywhere. They kind of have it in, like, some of the manuals and stuff and the base information you can read and some of the pictures you'll see describing it. So you might be able to figure out that that's Strife, but most likely you won't know the first time you play. So it's like, what on earth? What's going on? And wow, no, even losing 3 people, I'm still gaining time because of the time I lost fighting 2 of them. Fighting 2 others. Only a small amount of time, but not bad. So here, I ended up dying halfway through, so that's what cost all the time here. So hopefully I won't be stupid and lose myself the game by dying. Well, and hopefully I won't have an enemy who is super duper awful, because it's not entirely in my hands as well. If the AI decides they're going to be unstoppable, they're going to be unstoppable, and this is one of the worst ones. So this is my least favorite Chronicle in the game, because, and there's few others that I die so easily unless I'm trying a risky strat that is exposing my main stronghold. But you only get 3 characters here for some reason. Now, I say some reason. Logically, it's probably to represent the fact that we are suddenly rebelling against Grandal ourselves after seeing the Emperor kill Strife. The Emperor kills Strife. The Emperor is Strife. The Emperor Strife killed Gerardo. We're like, oh man, we shouldn't have let him die like that. We are fools. We want to be good guys from now on. We're going to rebel against Strife. He's obviously an evil emperor, and so we take up the rebellion. And that's why skipping Feofan and Rudiger saves like 10 to 15 seconds, because they have a big conversation with you about, are you serious? You really expect me to trust you? And all of that. While our people, because our character never says anything except one word in the game, in one of the pre-intro dialogues.
Battle 1. Fight.
Pre-intro Chronicle descriptions, rather, not even in dialogue. Our companions describe how we are feeling regret for killing Gerardo and letting the Emperor kill Gerardo, and it's bad translation too. They say Gerardo killed the Emperor, even though it was the opposite.
Battle 2. Fight.
But all that takes up quite a bit of time. But anyway, because we are rebelling now, and only, you know, certain of our closest new troops have decided to stick with us, it's representing that by giving us only 3 characters. That is our assumption, those of us who watch and or play this game a lot, but they never tell you exactly in the game. They don't say reasons why your arbitrary head count limit is suddenly reduced as it is.
Sorry, but I must move on.
So it's it wouldn't really change anything if they, did announce it, but at least it would make me feel better. But whatever. All we can do is press on. So it's not as bad on any percent, although some of these, there is a huge difficulty jump here for this map. Because of the Grandal elites. They aren't given a specific name really and anywhere, but if you examine the characters in Chronicles 16, 17, 18, and 19 compared to all the previous ones, we are towards the end of the game, so you'd expect to fight higher level characters, but they are a dramatic jump in level from what we were just fighting. They are given a lot better stats and hugely better AIs. And the biggest, I'll wait until 18 to explain the other reason, because that's semi-spoiler for us getting there. Not that it really matters that much, but we'll address it then. But these characters are significantly more powerful than even your regular names that we've been fighting up to this point, in both their AI and their levels and stats. And so we're contending with that, and we only have 3 characters. And to make it even worse, on SC percent, we have 3 Soulcalibur characters that we have to deal with. Two of them at once in a whirlwind, which is, makes it the second worst Soulcalibur fight next to Sung Mina. And in some ways even worse, because Sung Mina at least is only 1 character to fight, and you can gang up on her with up to 5 characters if you really need to. But here you have a maximum of 3 to defeat 2. The only saving grace is that they are both, again, just like Xiaoguan and Keelik, weaker classes. Yun Sung is a thief, probably the worst class in the game overall, and Talim is a saint, who are moderately durable, but the weakest offense in the game. But with the Whirlwind, their stats kind of don't matter. They just survive long enough to push you out of the ring, because their AI is very strong and programmed to take advantage of the Whirlwind to push you any and every direction, ring you out as much as possible. He's also a Mel by comparison, although a lot of people were frustrated with him, he's actually not a problem. His mission is the very unique down lose. This is the only place in the game you see the mission down lose. And down lose sounds weird, but it's exactly what it says on the tin. If your character falls down, if they're knocked down or knocked up in the air and fall on their back or face, you fall down, you lose. And it's not just you lose, an explosion hits underneath you and pops you up into the air, taking pretty much all of your health. All of your health exactly, so you lose there. You don't just lose, you get exploded upon and launched up into the air, and it's fantastic looking. But it happens to both you and Zosalamel. Now, it's bad because Zosalamel is programmed to take advantage of this as well, and he's got a good weapon for it, hitting you with light but long range and quick knockback attacks that will put you on your butt and send you streaming off in the sky as a failure. But by the same thing, he is also vulnerable to it. So if you hit him first and knock him down, you win automatically, and his level 60 high defense and hit points don't mean a darn thing. And now normally, of course, again, his AI is programmed for it. He has a good weapon for it, so it's hard to beat him. But luckily, I make a lot of use of katanas, which the katana's shoulder charge, he is baffled by and doesn't know what to do, and so he'll pretty much be one-shot by it automatically. It'll knock him down and instant win for him, and he just never blocks it and never attacks when it's coming, almost. I lose like 1 battle in 10 against Zosalamel, while it's like 50-50 with my Dancer, which is, the Dancer one definitely makes sense. Now we're doing a bit of a bait here. By baiting out this very strong character off to the side, we don't have to fight them. Unfortunately, we have to deal with the stronger one, because the AI, even though they don't abuse the shoulder charge like I do, the AI is incredibly good with the katana. Plus, again, since only samurai pretty much have katana, their stats are very, very good. Although their defense shouldn't be this durable. Even at level 50, this is Grandal Elite at its finest. Yukina is a horrible pain. Good fight there, though, this time. I'm going to save a lot of time on Chronicle 16. God, I can't believe I forgot her headband. She's not a real samurai without the headband. Oh, whoops. I can go all the way now. Yeah, she's the one. Wasting a little bit of time there. Not a big deal. All right. Now, this is the final awful fight of the mission. Is it Hitomi? I can't remember her name right now, and I forgot to look at it last time to remind myself. But she's another katana wielder, though she is katana shuriken, and she's randomly bad. Katana shuriken is a moderate thing. It's sort of annoying, but not super bad. But it's a really horrible separate. It's just as strong as Brunhild's was back in Chronicle 13. So it's really hard to combo up well. And she does a lot of damage because she's a samurai. So it's a rough fight. And it's actually the real final boss of this Chronicle. We fight another Katana Shuriken in the last one, but he only has guard break. And he actually isn't as strong. Kagami is a slightly disappointing boss just based on how awful this Chronicle is in general. It's a very anticlimactic finish after battling through 3 Soulcalibur characters and your first glimpse of the real Grandal Elite level 50 or near 50 super characters. And then you fight him, and he just does guard break after you fought essentially his daughter. It was tougher than he was, it would seem. Think that way. Since they're both using Katana Shuriken weapon, it's right after each other. And both have the proper Japanese names, too. It's hard not to think that they're related somehow.
Battle 1. Fight.
Settle down.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Konomi. Yeah, her name's, I think he kept thinking Hitomi, but Konomi is actually closer to Kagami even. Another reason why I think that they really feel like, my headcanon says that they're like father-daughter. Yep, separate. Always annoying to lose this battle. Not super unusual, though. But now I have to be able to kill her with the other 2. When I have 2 Swordmasters, Swordmasters are so strong I have no fear of losing, but the way this stupid separate works, you get unlucky like that, and it's very easy to die. Jeez. Yeah, this was how I lost it before, was right here, and 2 of my guys were too weak.
Final battle. Fight.
I was blocking. Okay, so not the best, but at least I didn't die. Little Irelia got a little bit more XP, which is good. It's nice to have everybody close to 20 going into the last couple of Chronicles. Fortify this up so we'll respawn here. Rather than, you know, all the way back at the beginning. And have to fight our way through the other character we skipped and all those strongholds again. Well, just one more stronghold, really, but... If you manage not to lose anyone, this is actually the second biggest break you get in the game. Although here could technically be a decent break as well once you assign orders to these two guys who've recovered. Because it takes so long for 3 characters to get through this massive stronghold. I'm just lucky it's level 4 and not level 5 at this point. It is so frustrating having only 3 characters in this Chronicle. But that's it here, and upon the completion of this Chronicle, we finally get the full story of 14 when Tina and I think Yui Lin are discussing it and figure out, yeah, these guys are way too prepared for our rebellion. You know, we supposedly just beat the rebels, but we have all these elite guys here. That means that it proves it. Those rebels who attacked us in the middle of the night that somehow snuck in the middle of our camp, they weren't rebels. They were assassins sent by Emperor Strife. He's been planning this all along. Yep.
Decisive battle.
Yep, the Paranoid Emperor was already planning against us, so it's almost makes it less of a rebellion on our part than a self-defense. Although we should have been quicker about it.
This fight was decided by fate.
Decided by fate, was it? Level 42 with 69 wins. All right, Chronicle 17 is a lot shorter than it looks like it should be. Broken Bonds is talking about with our companions, because all of the troops leading the army, except for the actual commander of this force, are all of our old companions that we had previously that were taken away from us after we conquered Dalkia back in Chronicle 12. And they totally don't want to fight us. However, the commander gives them these shards of metal, which are pieces of Soul Edge, and so that turns them into zombies that will follow whatever he says, so he makes them fight us. And there's a unique thing here where we will recruit anybody we defeat after the battle is over. We'll knock sense back into them, and they'll happily rejoin us. Along with Aeneas, our first character, who is the only one available during the tutorial. He joins us automatically whether we fight him or not. Similar to Aelion, who also joins us at this point, along with Shaoxin or Jinkai again if we recruited them before. Since we didn't, we don't see them, we don't get their dialogue, we skip it. But Aelion does come back. However, we are going to avoid most all of them because we don't care about them, and it's a whole lot faster to go this way. This is the only Chronicle where we'll be fighting the Soulcalibur characters on the map, because they're on this side road here, but the side road just happens to be the shortest way to the enemy. There's technically the top side road is also only 2 buildings, but they would be more annoying fights, and we also have the potential of all of those guys in the middle coming after us as well. So this way we get to skip them all. And all these people are just defending themselves. So this is Mega. He is the guy you rely on casually if you're not making your own characters, because he's a samurai who joins in Chronicle 3 and is available up through Chronicle 12. And so even when I'm doing, say, main character only, and whoops, I forgot to
I'm ready to fight you.
do 16. That's hilarious.
Battle 2. Fight.
How did that hit? I sidestepped that, and it was the side attack. Oh well. If that's the worst she gives me, we're fine. Darn it. I accidentally hit too many times. Okay, I made that harder than it should have been. Myself.
This time, I am the victor.
The one problem with my setup, doing A plus kick and then into B plus kick using just my shoulder buttons, is that pressing A, B, and kick at the same time does a soul charge. So if I hit them too close together and the game recognizes them as a single input, it makes me do soul charge instead. Next up is Tira. Hopefully she will be nice. Last time I did this, interestingly, it was the final boss who was mean. He is usually a pushover and very weak. He is in all unblockable, but he decided that even though he's all unblockable and should therefore not be aggressive, he decided he was going to be the hero and be aggressive, and he killed my main character. He might have killed one more too. I can't quite remember. But normally I don't lose anything to him. It's always either Tira or Sophitia or Mega, who are all high IQ characters, very dangerous and mean. But so on MCO, Mega's the only one here we really care about. The next useful one would be Eurydice, but she is behind a couple of different spots, so we really don't want to fight her. It really wouldn't be worth it, because by this time I have too many other characters to bring in one iron sword.
The fighters face Battle 1. Fight.
Gotcha. Now, Tira is the only character who is 2 classes, but they made her an assassin when you fight her because assassin is much more powerful than thief, so it makes sense. And now we just get to fight this. Now, the other thing about Aeolus, the boss of this place, is that similar to Arion back in Chronicle 4, he is an extremely tall character for no particularly discernible reason. He also has, even though he's Grandal and Arion was Dalkia, he also has a rather similar outfit too. His armor, his helmet is the same style, evil helmet, and has just his other armor parts are not exactly the same, but similar. Plus, you know, the evil helmet makes him and his similar name as well, having A's and E's and O's in it, makes it seem like they are brothers, even though they're from Grandal and Dalkia. I don't know. But just too many similarities. It's just so weird in my head. Regardless, hopefully he will be nice today. See, Ice is where Reese is. Smash is where... That's Aeneas, actually. Fake. Eurydice is there in minus guard. So I guess it wouldn't be too much of a side path to try and get her if you really wanted her. But at this point, you can get by pretty much relying mostly on Tina, Mega,
Battle 1.
and your main character for fighting. Look at how tall he is. Well, he was on the ground most of the time after I mentioned it, so you probably couldn't notice. And that is 17. Nice 20 minutes ahead now. Which is about where I wanted to be, so that's not too bad. Sub 310 would be very excellent. So now we come against Ellua. Yep, Lawful Stupid Ellua will cut down any enemy of Grandal, even if it's us. She doesn't care. Change our unit type to Cavalry here for a special reason. Let's see, Cavalry is going to be at 1, at 2, all the rest of you at 3. Okay. So a number of things to point out here. First of all, it's a dangerous map because our main character is, once again, it's an anti-assassination. If our main character is lost, we lose the battle regardless. So we have to deal with that. Now, it's a little bit tricky. It's a very weird map, but potentially we only have to take this one stronghold to reach Ellua and her stronghold. So I don't want my character in combat, but by having them down there as a cavalry, I can distract them a little bit. And the reason I'm a cavalry is not for speed, so much as it's actually for the amount of damage that I deal to strongholds. Now, this is why I say that starting at 16, we're fighting Grandal Elite, which are far above normal Grandal troops and are special, because here we have Ishtar, who is specifically Abilia's unit. We fought Ishtar and Notice back in her first mission.
You're way too weak.
And they were level 3 at the time. Now they've leveled up to level 36, which is about at her level 2, but still the Grandal Elite we're fighting are high 40s, low 50s. And they have a much more significant red to their color scheme. You know, looks like a more normal Grandal red, as opposed to the special unique units in her category.
Fate. Final battle. Fight.
Like Meng Yi here, who is super aggressive, level 49, super powerful. Oh my word. And of course, the most awful thing possible happened. And that just doesn't happen to Swordmasters, so it definitely is a, even though Samurai are very, very good offensively, even just the extra durability of their extra hit points of vitality makes a huge difference. That's going to lose me a lot of time on this one. Luckily, I didn't have a great one last time anyway, so it's not going to be super duper bad, but even so. I think I'm fighting all three now. And that's Grandal Elite. Now, there are notices here leveled up as well, and there's a third unit for Abilia named Baldwin. Right here, level 3 Baldwin. That may seem wrong, and it is. And actually, I kind of got my theories confirmed because I've talked about him a couple of times, but on my last video, somebody posted that in the PAL version, he's actually level 41. And so there is not really a bug, but it was that he's level 3 in the American version. He's not supposed to be, obviously. But 41 isn't high enough to be Grandal Elite, so it is something, and especially his appearance doesn't look like Grandal Elite either. He looks about like what you'd expect from an Abilia type unit. So it's possible that they were originally planning to have him as a unit in the first Chronicle against Abilia as well, but they decided that 4 unique units when you could only field 3 and you had to fight a couple generics was probably too many, so they removed Baldwin. And in the American version, at least, the NTSC as it is, they forgot to level him up, pulled the wrong version of him, or however they do the programming for units here. No, that one wasn't in the fight. Okay, that's another slight waste of time. That's unfortunate. Oh well. But so anyway, in the American version, they pulled the wrong version of him or didn't level him up properly because he wasn't in Chronicle 1. I suspect that's the reason why. And then they caught that and reprogrammed it for when it went to PAL. She didn't die from that? That should have killed her. Oh well. Oh, she has a regenerating sword, so she just regenerated enough health. Yep. Falchion, there, that Falchion regenerates life. Okay. Oh, she respawned in the wrong place. She's probably not going to make it in time, in fact. Oh well. So the reason I made my character a cavalry is for a plug for that particular stronghold, because those two are actually strong enough to, before I can take the main stronghold of Abilia, they would take that one and then take my main one, and or force my main character to fight. However, because they cannot move past me if I'm attacking their stronghold as much as they want to actually fight me, they will instead give me the opportunity to attack their stronghold, and since I'm a wimpy cavalry, it'll take me forever to bring that one down.
I'm sorry, but I must move on.
But fortify it up for safety since I don't have 4 characters here. So yeah, just stay right there. because I'd have to fight through those two just to get there, which isn't worth it. All right. Regardless, next up is our battle against Ellua. Now, this, most of the time, what I call assassination missions are actually take the main stronghold. Although, again, it usually doesn't matter outside of Chronicle 4, where Rowan never stays inside the stronghold, so you can, theoretically, if you kill the characters outside, take a 0-person main stronghold in order to win. The only time that'll happen. Every other time, there's always a boss defending the main stronghold, so taking the main stronghold is the same thing as defeating him. And you'll never get multiple characters retreating in there to make a difference. However, on this one, see, as you can see, it's going to take me forever to get through that, and they can't get at me. And I don't want my main character to fight because they could potentially kill me. However, the actual objective here, victory condition, is not to take the stronghold, but merely to kill Ellua. So I actually take advantage of that to make up to save a bit of time here with a rather unique strat I don't use anywhere else in the game. Yeah, I'll be able to take this without their interference. I could possibly do this with 2, but I'm not going to risk it. Nope, I might have to. They actually would have arrived enough to force me into combat, so... But I don't know how well these two will do against Ellua. I'm not used to using this weapon style on them. This is going to be interesting.
I will not lose against a traitor, even if it is you.
Only I could remember what that was.
Battle 1. Fight.
You can't get away.
Yeah. This is potentially bad.
Battle 2. Fight.
Just those kinds of abusive attacks aren't worth it because... Oh, come on. Nope. Those ones just aren't worth it against her. They can't do enough.
I can't believe this.
Okay, well, now I'm going to have to beat everybody pretty much, which is going to lose a whole lot of time. Oh, well. Such happens.
Battle 1. Fight.
I'm sorry. Out of the way. I'm sorry. Out of the way. I'm sorry.
Final battle. Fight.
Stop sidestepping like that. Come on. You've been bad enough to me this mission. I don't need any more of your lip and all the rest.
It looks like I got lucky.
So unfortunately, dying with those two definitely ruins my... Oh, that's most excellent. One of them went away at least. Or, nope, coming back. Too bad. So it totally ruins my other grand plan strategy that I usually use. Now, because unfortunately, when you first encounter any... Normally, bosses you fight last. They're always the last in a group. Unless the enemy happens to... Yeah, you always fight them last unless they are a cutscene. If one of the characters in a stronghold initiates a cutscene when you fight them first. However, on subsequent trips, it will follow the usual idea of fighting the boss last. So I'm first going to be fighting the two little generics instead of Abilia. Now, normally, when I have my troops, I will beat Abilia with one or two, or maybe on the third one, and then instantly try to jump out of the ring and commit suicide, because it's faster than trying to beat the enemy when they have Guardian Force. See, even a generic as Guardian Force is super terrible because they can just freely attack so much. Yikes.
Battle 2. Fight.
So it isn't worth it to try and fight these guys after I've beaten Abilia, so I commit suicide. Sometimes I make jokes about it, like, oh, I'm trying to lure... This is a strategy to lure them out of bounds, but I haven't been bothering to lately. It's a good thing I would have never gotten the chance to here anyway, because I couldn't beat Abilia with my two characters, so I have to fight them first. If I can at least beat him, that means I'll only have Abilia left for the rest. Nope. So I'm still going to have to beat 2 with the 3, which is super duper bad. So yeah, that's the whole reason why I do suicide instead of trying to kill them. You think, oh, they're just generics. It shouldn't be too bad, even if it's Guardian Force. Nope. When you can't reliably deal with them and they can attack you anytime they like, anybody becomes super rough. Well, the good news is he's not going to regenerate since he ran away out there. We'll take this down quick. I'll regenerate here. I'll build this up to 3 just in case. And hopefully we'll take down the main stronghold before... Yeah, we should be okay for this at least. I don't think that that Michigo's going to regenerate, but unfortunately he's also going to make it in, but he at least will be almost dead. Oh no, maybe I will get to use her too. So he's not going to have much health left.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight.
That's interesting. It's her instead. I wonder if because the other guy is so weak. I've never had to attempt a third time, so... Whoops. I didn't want to do the full thing.
Fight. Battle 2. Fight.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
This kick eats a lot of health up. Kunai is actually, I never realized it was so good against things. It's a possibility to switch to this for any percent if I know who it's going to be, which actually I kind of figured out now. Because I've tried a strategy before and gotten multiple times people suggesting to deal with this by switching to, say, the sickle, which allows you to do a ranged attack throw, which actually is the only thing that can affect these people. With Guardian Force, you can actually use attack throws, even though you can't use normal throws. And I've tried that, but it just isn't worth the time, especially swapping weapons, and especially when I played kind of chaotically and wasn't sure who was attacking. But the way my strategy works now, the only person who will be in combat is my number 5 slot, and so they would reliably will be the one who will fight Gerardo, because it's always the weakest-ish character, however that is defined. Lowest level or lowest hit points. Yikes, what a time loss there. Ugh. Oh well, we're in the home stretch. 2 things left to go. This is the last time we get to do missions. Well, going forward might be worth looking into using kunai more. Even swapping to that might be okay in any percent if it's that effective. We will see. So Chester is now the leader of the guard. As we take on the capital city itself and all of its many things. This is kind of disappointing for a final area for a number of reasons. It's a very large map. It's the largest overall map, the most strongholds, but has a pretty direct route if you skip all the side things, so it isn't that long. It's shorter than 16 on any percent because there's you have 5 characters to get through the relatively fewer number of strongholds you have to get through. But here, guarding his lair are 4 generics. Your 4 generics are all right here. Very weak, 19 level. Chester is the final boss, and I already made mention of how weak Chester is. He's a level 60 Swordmaster now, which gives him a lot better stats than he had as a thief before. But even so, he's not that strong. The dagger is just so weak. His weapon is not particularly strong. They only gave him guard break, which again is like the most disappointing thing you can give to somebody to make them not strong. Even more than that, last time we had Siegfried the Knight in as the penultimate Soulcalibur character. Our last Soulcalibur character is Nightmare, who would seem like a good one, but since they made him a barbarian, he's extremely fragile and weak. His poison is not particularly a dangerous mission, so he has low stats for level 60, so as the very final Soulcalibur character, he's a bit of a disappointment. There are some fairly tough generics here, but none of them seem really as bad as the ones we just fought in 18 and 16. So it's just overall pretty anticlimactic. The final area, though, is got lots of worthy enemies and a special way to deal with them.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight.
Love the taunt quotes. I love taunting and hearing whatever those lines are. I have one more in Nightmare. When I first was trying this, I was attempting to use Soul of Siegfried because it has some good abusable moves, but I'm not good with those abusable moves, and I can't make them work as well as other people who are speedrunning his thing specifically, so I ended up giving up on it and going to Iron Sword, which is a little bit more reliable. The saddest thing about that is I no longer have access to 3 different taunts, but only 2, and I love being able to taunt. It's the biggest problem with using Soulcaliburs in general. I could take this a step farther and do only Soulcalibur styles, maybe, but whoops, let's see. This doesn't seem worth it. I'm already I still need to practice some of these other styles a little bit better and figure out things that they can do in other spots. But without the power of the Swordmaster stats combined with the Dancer, I'm already having trouble in MCO and in this category sometimes. I'm doing decent. I got MCO down to like 309, which isn't really bad. And this should at least be easier than MCO since I have set characters, although maybe the levels make a difference. The characters who join you, when they rejoin especially, Mega comes back as a level 36 samurai, and so technically that makes him stronger than Sharin that I've got right now. And so maybe that's making the big difference. Who is not advancing? Irelia. That's right, I never gave her their secondary. So notice now we only have 3 guys over there instead of 4. One of them ducked back inside the base. Always does for some reason. I don't know why she does that, but all the rest of them are programmed to stand still until I get really close and then to advance on me. But she actually, about the time you hit the middle of the main city here, her script says, fall back and defend the main stronghold. And she says, okay. If they split 2 and 2, it would make a little bit more sense, but since it's just her and the rest stand there until they're ready to fight, so weird. Oh, God, again, yeah. They just seem so much better at doing these ring outs against my samurai as well. I never have this much of a ring out problem with my Swordmasters for some reason. Or maybe I'm just that much out of practice since I haven't played this in many months. And then that was once or twice derusting, and I hadn't played it in like 7 or 8 months. It's been so long since I've been doing this regularly, but I don't know. Okay, with that dealt with, I shouldn't be wasting time giving more orders because we're going to stop here. Paralysis Glue is both paralysis and glue, believe it or not. Mad Struggle is a couple of things I can't quite remember. Cure Sapalit, my favorite mission in the game, and we rarely ever fight somebody here. It is cure and separate combined, but given wonderful English. And because almost nobody fought there, they never figured out to correct it.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight!
Haven't you had enough? How did you enjoy that dance?
Good line, good line. It's really interesting, the things they do with the dialogue. Even Soulcalibur 6 finally gave us a pretty wide range of voices to use, but 4 and 5, the biggest problem with them was that they, besides not having a good customized mode to use custom characters in, they were extremely limited in their voices. Now, technically, there are only 4 voices per gender here, But because your clothing affects your character's alignment, you get to adjust them to be, you have effectively 4 different voices per voice. So girl 1 has, even though it's the technically same person giving all the lines, the different tone makes the voices completely different if you're light hot or light cold versus dark hot or dark cold, as I tend to refer to those, how they divide them up. And so that gives you, even if you don't do the old man and old woman because they are flagrantly old, that gives you 12 reasonable voices in 12 reasonable voices on for each gender of totally different lines and such. In addition to that, you have the different lines that factor from which of the 4 voices you're using for a specific class that happen randomly. So you get quite a bit of variety in the things that your characters say. But they started to get really lazy with it as well, so that instead of having a collection of 4 or 5 different lines for starting a battle, each character only has 2, based on whether they're on the left or the right. And they even are still doing that in Soulcalibur 6, and it just frustrates me that those lines are repeated all the time instead of having a more interesting amount. But you got lots of different voice lines, all the different attitudes. It really makes it easy to have individual characters here. And especially necessary when you've got 5 ones you're using all the time. Now my main character is going to serve as a plug again. To prevent the character inside of here from coming out and causing me issues. And forcing me to fight them. Final stronghold going down.
Decisive battle.
Now, interestingly, the final fight against Chester is the only one where he doesn't get a cutscene, either before or after. He has dialogue both before and after, though.
Battle.
Although his dialogue after is basically a death rattle.
Ring out.
Jeez. I was waiting for it, didn't do it, and so I went ahead to attack, and she delayed just to do it at the right time. Oh well.
Battle.
Oh no, level 60 Swordmaster. He's so dangerous. How did that not hit him?
Ring out. Fight.
You can't stop me.
24-5 is a really awful record for my katana user. Goodness. Very, very similar to last time. Okay, now there are lots of units spread around and they are standing still. So this is the one time in the game where it's really good to use infantry and fight battles on the world map because it's faster than Nope, we're done. Okay. Oh, yep. These guys are all pretty powerful, but ganging up 5-on-1 means that we can chew through them really fast. And so it's both much more consistent than fighting them in battle, and just tends to be a little bit quicker because we don't have to worry about the loading times. Unfortunately, the experience is spread kind of randomly. Whoever gets the final blow is the one who gets all the experience for the fight. So it's not always the person I would like to get the experience, but it still is the most preferable way of dealing with all of these. And I choose the route I do because I would take less damage from the knight, but he has more hit points, so it's just a little bit quicker to burn through the ones with less hit points. And this is on this final scenario, I actually only have one loss condition. The minute Kane is defeated, I lose. When Strife is defeated, I win. So it's the one time in the game, it's a 1-for-1 exchange. Your boss or their boss. No other way for them to beat me. Darn, Sharn taking some hits. She leveled up, though. Getting my character very close to death, but not quite death is ideal. Because since there are two reasons I don't want my main character involved in this fight at all anyway. Unfortunately, he got the XP. Oh well, not a huge deal at this point. Ouchie. Okay, it'll be a little bit faster to do this than to lose a character. Just the tiniest bit.
Battle 1. Fight.
Although not if I die, goodness. Oh my word, so I lost somebody anyway. Nope, that was a waste of time. I should have just let the character die. I forgot that I don't have instant kill weapon on everything. She got way too good. Now I'm going to lose two characters. Oh, I didn't lose. Amazing.
It looks like I won today, but who knows what'll happen next. next time.
So now with the loading and the fact that I still lost the character, I'm definitely going to fine with this. The only one who hasn't taken damage is my knight, who I care least about. So in other words, if I can't beat Strife with my Samurai, which is quite possible, because Strife can do a huge amount of damage and just auto-kill me. At least I'm level 35. The odds of one of my other characters winning are pretty darn low, since I have two nearly dead. And I don't want my main character involved in the fight, because not only is it over if they die, and even if they are full health, there can be one or two shot by Strife. But if my main character attacks Strife, I get a cutscene, which wastes some time. You don't get the cutscene if it isn't your main character who initiates combat, so... Instead, you just get a box of dialogue, which you can easily super skip. Insta-skip. I had a very, very good Chronicle 20 before. Under 6 minutes is always fantastic for Chronicle 20. This time, not so much. And that was despite the fact that I lost the character, too. I should have just gone with it. Ah, darn it. Didn't do it right. Look at that damage I take. That's it. Okay. Whew. Had a good fight. I used to not be able to do it. I've been a lot better at consistently winning with at least one Swordmaster on the final attack there. The final battle. Thanks to realizing that the jumping spin kick to push him to the edge to ring out is a lot better than trying to forge through his hit points normally. Because ring outs are not instant victories in Chronicles of the Sword. That's only in Chronicles of the Sword. They did it because they knew it would be overpowering on bosses. But it's still 50% of their maximum HP, just instead of 100%. So it's still really good to get ring outs, even if it isn't as good as it is in normal Soulcalibur play. So this time ran into trouble in 18 was a lot more awful than it should have been, but still did a bunch better. Still got room for improvement. Considering that I'm doing a brand new thing while being rusty, this isn't going too badly. I'll go ahead and use this as my submission video. This is playing for a little small marathon I was planning on submitting for. I would have liked to have had a much better run, maybe even a sub 310. I didn't get it, unfortunately, but
the people, however,
it's okay.
Eventually forgot the hardships.
And it'll get better. I'll have to do some more practicing with it.
Sowed new seeds upon the destroyed fields. Then by the fireside, they told the tales of the great ones who spilt their blood upon those
and
lands.
animatronic statue with that moving hand. Only happens with Soul of Xianghua as far as I know. But that was it. Soulcalibur III Chronicles of the Sword. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be doing more actual online streaming and stuff around now too.